The sun rose over Xuanjing City in the Great Xuan Nation. Among the countless houses with traditional styles, the Grand Tutor's large mansion was already awake. Water was served in a steel cup designed by a beautiful apprentice. The tutor, with white hair and a long white beard, remained on his throne, being served by his female disciples. Before him, dozens of disciples knelt, prostrating themselves with their heads to the floor, wishing in a great unison, "Happy birthday, Grand Tutor." In the last 50 years, this man who possessed nothing had earned the title of Grand Tutor. His power eclipsed any other power in the world. The story of his life could be written in a work of millions of words. When he, Li Fan, transmigrated to this world, he arrived as nothing more than a poor, struggling scholar. However, he achieved a life that anyone would wish to be in his place. Everywhere he looked, numerous dancers gladdened his eyes. However, spoiling such a view, a man burst into the great mansion shouting, "Grand Tutor! Grand Tutor! Fire is falling from the sky! It is a divine sign, an omen of evil. It is coming towards your mansion." Li Fan rushed to the outer area of the pavilion and saw a sky darkened by clouds. Amidst them, two powers faced each other. On one side, a person shrouded in fire, and on the other, someone in the midst of shadows. The voice of one of them could be heard echoing, "Dao Xuanzi, do not force me to go where I do not need to." The two men in the sky appeared to be cultivators, something that surprised Li Fan, who was already surrounded by disciples, kneeling and pleading to the heavens. Li Fan, looking up, could not help but be amazed by the sight he had. The man shrouded in dark energy carried a flying sword and wore a white robe, which contrasted with his long black hair. He addressed the man before him. "Ku Hong, do you think I would let you go just because you fled to this land of immortal extinction? Hand over the cultivation method you obtained that day, or this will not end until only one of us remains alive." The muscular man named Ku Hong refused. "What a joke! It is precisely because I lack a core formation method that I have been stuck in the foundation stabilization stage for almost 100 years. Now my lifespan is reaching its limit, and I am about to become dust. Having finally obtained this technique, how would I give it back?" Dao Xuanzi recognized his brother's words. The Tao of the Golden Core is a path that one must walk alone. Although there are so many methods of core foundation, there are countless cultivators stuck in the soul stabilization state. However, with such a technique before him, he would not let Ko Hong escape with it. Seeing Dao Xuanzi wield his sword, Ko Hong laughed. "How funny. We were brothers for hundreds of years, and now we are going to cross swords in exchange for a chance to survive." Despite knowing he was not a match for Dao Xuanzi, Ko Hong released his fire dragon technique in an intense miasma to face Dao Xuanzi and his fate. The inscriptions on the blade of Dao Xuanzi's sword lit up with the energy he infused into it, and with great force, Dao Xuanzi wielded it to attack. The sword was shot towards Ku Hong, who released his dragon, seeking a chance to survive. The fire dragon and the sword met, trying to force their way over each other. The confrontation between the two energies exploded in the sky over Xuanjing City. Li Fan and all his disciples were stunned by such power. However, soon the impressed expression on Li Fan's face changed to an expression of fear. The reach of the blow also swallowed his residence. Hours passed, and when Li Fan woke up, his body felt heavy. Various debris buried him. Coughing due to the dust that covered the entire city, he tried to get up. Whether it was his wife, his daughter, or his disciples, none of them were alive anymore. Li Fan managed to get out of the debris and search the surroundings of the mansion, looking for even a single living soul. However, that once prosperous Xuanjing City had become a city in flames. As far as the eye could see, one would only see collapsed buildings and bodies scattered through the burning streets. After such a catastrophe, not even 1% of the citizens had survived. Tired, Li Fan sat amidst the debris. He blamed the two cultivators for the destruction of the city. Unexpectedly, Li Fan began to laugh. "Ha ha 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 ha! How can there be cultivators in this world?" Since becoming an official, Li Fan used the power in his hands to search for any possible trace of walking the path of the immortals. After becoming an imperial tutor, being above all others, he searched the whole world, from boat trips to other continents to climbing frozen mountains, from the frozen sea of the north to the great ocean of the south, to the east, to the abyss of ruin, and to the west, to the interconnected mountains. Li Fan spent so many decades seeking immortality that he eventually gave up after becoming old. Facing such powerful beings, Li Fan wondered if they were immortals, and where they came from. In the end, the only answer he had was that fate was playing with him. Li Fan did not accept reality. Making a seal gesture with one hand, he used the other to hold a staff that released his electric power, Huanzhen. Letters began to appear, and an incantation began to be formed. When truth is transformed into a lie, falsehood becomes real. The loading of a scenario was successfully done, and the option to return to a point in the past appeared for Li Fan. His power, the Huanzhen, his only treasure, transformed truth into illusion and reality into virtuality. This transformed everything Li Fan experienced into a simulated and illusory experience, allowing him to return to a predefined anchor point, the moment he first transmigrated to this world. This was Li Fan's second life since his transmigration to the Great Xuan Nation. In his first life, despite his great ambitions, he ended up being just an ordinary person. He wanted to pass the imperial exam, but always failed. After reaching 30, he gave up the idea of becoming an official and started a small business. He became rich, although a commoner, married, had children, and lived a common life. It was only when he was old and in his last days of life that he finally awakened the unique treasure, Huanzhen. The Huanzhen took him to unstoppable growth in his second life. Thanks to the loads of the Huanzhen system, he could restart life and return to the starting point to begin again. However, Li Fan did not want to return yet. There was something important to do. Gathering with warriors who had survived, he wrote a letter and ordered, "Transmit my order. Order the garrison camp stationed on the outskirts of the city to head immediately to Xuanjing and maintain order after the disaster." Most of the buildings in Xuanjing had been destroyed. After Li Fan's trusted garrison camp took control of Xuanjing, not only would they be able to speed up the post-disaster reconstruction, but more importantly, he could stay on track to oversee the cleanup efforts and secretly send people to investigate the whereabouts of the two cultivators. A month later, the ruins of Xuanjing City had begun to regain their former life. Several months later, the ruined city completely recovered its glory. At his residence, Li Fan received a visit from a spy who revealed, reporting to the Grand Tutor, there is still no news of the two cultivators. Li Fan blamed himself for having hopes. In that case, he had nothing else to hold on to in this life. The protagonist used his Huanzhen system ability. A small world of energy appeared in the palm of his hand as a scenario began to be generated from incantations that wrote the truth of the world. As soon as he accepted to return, Li Fan saw his life recede as well as his body, becoming younger. Memories passed before him like windows. One of his last memories, the vision of Dao Xuanzi and Ko Hong, was the most striking. "In 50 years, I will wait for you again in Xuanjing." Thus, the protagonist ordered, "Huanzhen, restart a new life. Return to the first starting point." Immediately, Li Fan's body traveled through time. Riches and honors became only passing clouds for Li Fan. In this next life, what he desired to hunt were the immortals. In Li Fan's life, countless starting points had been saved. In the first year, radiant with joy, he misbehaved and was nearly forced by his aunt to drink exorcism water from the village witch. Half a year later, he took the provincial exams, and although he passed in a humble position, he succeeded in bringing honor to his ancestors by obtaining the title of Juren. In the second year, he passed the metropolitan exam and excelled in the palace exam, ranking second and receiving the title of Jinshi. Using his influence in Xuanjing, he secured the position of magistrate of Wen County in Jiangnan. In the third year, Li Fan began to cultivate his inner circle of trust. He also succeeded in producing a batch of explosives and flintlock rifles. In the fifth year, refugees rebelled against the mansion of Prince Langya, and Li Fan rescued him. Thus, Prince Langya and his family became deeply grateful to him. In the sixth year, Li Fan was promoted to mayor and married the daughter of one of the vice ministers. In the seventh year, Li Fan's son was born. In the 10th year, the princess of Langya gave birth to a son, and at that moment, Li Fan visited her personally to offer congratulations and gifts. In the 15th year, the emperor passed away and Prince Langya inherited the throne, changing the era name to Xuanjing. The emperor summoned Li Fan to the capital, promoting him to vice minister of war and ordering him to lead troops to suppress rebellions. In the 18th year, the rebel army had already been swept away, and being recognized, Li Fan was promoted to minister of war and appointed grand tutor to the crown prince. In the 20th year, the empress was suddenly involved in a witchcraft case. Emperor Xuanjing was furious and confined her to the cold palace. The crown prince secretly sought Li Fan's help, who agreed. Through private investigations, Li Fan found the person who framed the empress, clearing her name. However, Emperor Xuanjing did not release her from the cold palace. In the 25th year, Li Fan secretly received news that someone had denounced him for secretly visiting the empress in the cold palace. In the same year, Emperor Xuanjing was attacked while traveling. Officials removed the princess from the cold palace, and the crown prince ascended the throne, beginning the Kangning era. In the 26th year, Li Fan received the noble title of Grand Tutor and was appointed Grand Scholar of the Deliberative Council, reaching the pinnacle of his official career. He took this opportunity to eliminate dissent and build his own faction in the imperial court. By the 30th year, people all over the world knew the Grand Tutor more than the emperor himself. In the 31st year, the empress became pregnant and gave birth to Li Fan's son. In year 38, Emperor Kangning perished from the bitterness of grief. 2 years later, the emperor's empress dowager perished from an illness. In the 45th year, it was time for Li Fan's wife to depart, and a year later, the final day of his eldest son arrived. Finally, in year 50, 2 immortals who came out of the abyss of ruin arrived at Xuanjing and destroyed it, an event from which Li Fan barely escaped with his life. After Li Fan traveled through all the events of his life, the system ended the simulation and provided him with some choices. The first choice was to take an item with him into this simulation. The second option was to choose his cultivation realm for the simulation. The third option was to simulate the memory of a person close to him, making that person inherit the memory. Lastly, he could ignore all options and choose accelerated simulation loading. While still wondering about the system of simulation, illusion, and reality, Li Fan focused on the options he had. The first and second options were easy to explain. They could be of great help in entering the path of cultivation. Unfortunately, he was a mere mortal in his past life. The third option could carry countless instabilities, leaving him only with the fourth option. Li Fan knew that the virtualization of the Huanzhen system needed to go through a loading state. When he received a fatal attack, Huanzhen would protect him by consuming the loaded progress to automatically shield him. This had been the reason he escaped the attack of the immortals during the end of his past life. In the end, Li Fan believed the safest and most stable option was to increase the speed of progress loading. Being in his third life, Li Fan already possessed a mental age of 166 years. In the user information, Li Fan could see that his life limit was 1,056 years, but in his past life, it was only 900. When someone carried many memories, their mental resistance reached a limit. An excessive burden would crush the soul. This is what is called the erosion of time. However, the mental age limit will increase as mental fortitude strengthens. Yet Li Fan had a confidence. As long as I step onto the path of cultivation, none of this will be a problem for me. Li Fan's goal for this life was to learn the cultivation secrets of those 2 cultivators. In 50 years, they would appear in Xuanjing. With preparations against this failure, Li Fan was confident he would be able to win. The protagonist imagined that what he could rely on, besides weapons and explosives, was the immortal mortal miasma mentioned by cultivators, but he could not wait 50 years to obtain it. Discovering that the duo had emerged from the ruined abyss, Li Fan planned, in this life, to send people to the bottom of the abyss to investigate. The most terrifying thing in life is not having a goal. In his past life, Li Fan used to wake up in the middle of the night in the Empress Dowager's bed, feeling an immense emptiness and confusion. In that previous life, he had reached the absolute pinnacle for a mortal. He could not advance any further, and that could end up happening in this new life as well. Power and pleasure, after repeatedly obtaining them so many times, eventually lose their taste. If such an unchanging life continued to happen in the future, Li Fan ran the risk of giving, but the appearance of the 2 cultivators showed him a new world of possibilities. It was as if he were seeing a strange and seductive world beckoning to him. Li Fan now had a goal. I want to cultivate. I want a long life. No one can stop me. Dao Xuanzi and Ko Hong, I will see you in 50 years. With the experience of 2 lives, everything went as easily as water in a river. Li Fan also participated in the imperial exam in this life, but this time, with decades of experience and power, the essays he wrote were naturally much superior to those of his previous life. Whether in the main exam or the metropolitan one, Li Fan took first place in both, achieving the triple crown of government exams and spreading his fame throughout the world. In the end, he still chose to take an official position in Wen County. Although there was much confusion and apprehension on the part of the imperial court, Li Fan's request was accepted. Thanks to his great fame, combined with a crystal clear understanding of the temperament of each county official, Li Fan managed to subjugate Wen County. He then began to promote and cultivate the trusted subordinates he found in his last life. In the 4th year, Li Fan secretly provoked and found someone who could act as a double for Prince Langya in order to cultivate him as a loyal subordinate. In the 5th year, following Li Fan's orders, the subordinate pretended to be a refugee and attacked Prince Langya's mansion. Li Fan faked a rescue, but in reality, he internally coordinated the elimination of Prince Langya's entire family, while simultaneously placing a lookalike in his place. From then on, he began to secretly control Prince Langya's Mansion. In the 9th year, the marriage of the fake Prince Langya took place, and the granddaughter of the Grand Chief Scholar was crowned princess as planned. That night, Li Fan entered the bridal chamber and had marital relations with the new Princess Langya. In the 10th year, Princess Langya gave birth to a son, secretly Li Fan's son. In the 15th year, the emperor finally fell ill. After receiving the decree of succession, Li Fan quickly headed to the capital with his trusted subordinates. After Prince Langya ascended the throne, Li Fan aggressively placed his subordinates in the imperial court. With the secret collaboration of the chief scholar, he easily took control of the situation. In the 20th year, after helping his own son become the emperor, Li Fan proclaimed himself Grand Tutor, stepping from behind the curtains to the front line and exercising power over the world once again. After that, not only did the gears of Great Xuan's development not stagnate, but they turned even faster under Li Fan's will. In year 35, Li Fan discovered something. So the fog over the abyss of ruin dissipates for half a day every 70 years? Li Fan's subordinate knelt, declaring, "Reporting to the Grand Tutor, it is exactly so. The Quest for Immortality camp received orders to position themselves by the ruinous abyss and observe day and night. We finally managed to make progress a few days ago. After the great mist dispersed, a faint light could be seen shining at the bottom of the abyss. We used a telescope to observe it and discovered an inverted passage. According to the man, although each person's scene was not identical, there were 10,000 mountains rising and falling, with magnificent structures hidden among them, barely glimpsed. There were imposing cities on the plains, teeming with life, with no fewer than 1 million inhabitants. There was even a city in the sky, shrouded in rosy light, with all kinds of rare and exotic creatures flying around. Discovering the truth, Li Fan questioned if the man had found a way to reach the bottom of the abyss. The answer was negative. Our subordinates were incompetent. We tried several methods, but unfortunately, as soon as we descend to a certain depth, we are torn apart by a sudden astral wind. The wind that arose at the bottom of the abyss was terrible. Even the strongest armor could not resist it. Raising his hand, Li Fan signaled the man to be silent. Observing the moon, the protagonist realized he was helpless. It seems I will need to wait for those two. Years passed, and soon the 50th year after Li Fan's reincarnation arrived. It was night in the great Xuan nation, and once again, in the skies of Xuanjing, two energies flew in pursuit of each other. As if their lines were in a script, Ku Hong shouted, "Dao Xuanzi, do not force me to go where I do not need to." As soon as Ku Hong's voice rang out bravely, several volleys of fire rose into the skies, aiming at both him and Dao Xuanzi. Ku Hong crossed his arms in front of his body, protecting himself while grinding his teeth in fury, wondering who would dare to launch a surprise attack. In the city streets, numerous guards aimed at the sky, firing at the invaders. With mental power, Ku Hong halted the metal pellets flying toward him. The weapon of one of the guards unexpectedly began to float, soaring toward the heavens, drawn by a fiery power. Ku Hong caught the weapon and analyzed it. Oh, interesting. Using complex mechanical structures instead of formations, and the explosive power of mortal things instead of spiritual energy. To think that, after several thousand years, the mortals exiled to this land of immortal extinction could actually research such an ingenious object. However, according to Ku Hong, it was a pity, for such weapons were only effective in places where the great Tao was incomplete. Outside the land of immortal extinction, it is but a pile of useless scrap metal. Furious to see mortals dare to oppose cultivators, originally feeling guilty, he was now determined to deliver each of them to their fate. Concentrating deeply, Ku Hong muttered, "Tao art, roar of the fire dragon." A massive fire dragon emerged from Ku Hong's hands, charging toward the city. The dragon snaked above the buildings, torching every house and structure it approached, bringing panic to the streets. Despite the fire ravaging the city apparently, there was no one among the debris. Ku Hong was shocked. He gnashed his teeth, wondering what had happened, for the roar of the fire dragon was something mortals should not be able to withstand. One by one, the people emerged from their hiding places completely untouched by the attack. Dao Xuanzi used his spiritual power to manipulate the bullets fired by the mortals and commented, "These hidden weapons were soaked in mortal blood. After you were stained by the miasma, your Dao arts were weakened." Dao Xuanzi reached a conclusion. "We were ambushed the moment we arrived, and the enemy even used the immortal mortal miasma. They were clearly prepared." Faced with such a bizarre place, Dao Xuanzi refused to stay any longer. He and Ku Hong were about to leave when an old man's voice thundered in their ears. "Dao Xuanzi, Ku Hong, if you leave today, tomorrow, the news that you obtained a core formation method will spread throughout the entire cultivation world." Dao Xuanzi and Ku Hong looked at each other, shocked. Only the two of them knew they had obtained such a method. They did not understand how the news had leaked. While they were pensive, cannonballs flew in their direction, carrying a crimson energy. Facing the attack, Ku Hong bellowed, "Don't you dare!" The flames around Ko Hong rose in an overwhelming manner. However, Dao Xuanzi had perceived the secret behind the attack and shouted hurriedly, "Ku Hong, dodge quickly!" But Ko Hong did not dodge, and the explosions of the cannonballs engulfed him and Dao Xuanzi. A red rain fell from the sky, as did the two cultivators, who crashed onto the city street and were quickly surrounded. One of the mortals surrounding them shouted, "Immortal masters! Our Grand Tutor has given an order. If you surrender today, your lives will be spared." Hearing the order to surrender, Dao Xuanzi snorted as if it were a joke. However, while he still trembled trying to stand, a spatial ring flew toward him, carried by a faint flame. It seemed to be a parting gift from Ku Hong. "Take my storage ring." Those were the last words of Ku Hong, who closed his eyes for eternity. A fire dragon appeared in the sky, as if Ko Hong's soul were leaving his body. It roared fiercely. However, its body underwent a transformation, quickly turning into a piece of wood. When the dragon disappeared, only a branch remained. The foundation-level cultivator, Ko Hong, who had cultivated for 205 years, reached his Dao foundation with the mystic Chu dragon branch. In the land of immortal extinction, he was surrounded by thousands of mortals, and, through carelessness, was wounded by the immortal mortal miasma. Ku Hong's cultivation was instantly lost, and his lifespan reached its end. Now, his body lay for the crows to eat, and his Dao had vanished, returning the Dao to the heavens. Li Fan's subordinate gripped his weapon tighter and shouted, "Immortal Master Dao Xuanzi, our Grand Tutor has no intention of fighting you. If you give up resisting, our Grand Tutor will ensure your life remains safe." When Ko Hong perished, Li Fan, who was watching everything from a mountain peak, had heard a strange voice in the sky. However, he didn't think the voice was important, because hunting immortals in this life was no longer a hope. He truly didn't expect the immortal mortal miasma to be so lethal to cultivators. Dao Xuanzi stood up by force, monologuing, "I do not know who you are nor your purpose. Today you conspired against us brothers, resulting in the loss of our Dao. There is nothing more to be said." A look of fury appeared on Dao Xuanzi's face. He refused to accept what had happened. He looked at the men in front of him and seemed to search for someone as he spoke, hiding behind mortals and even using the immortal mortal miasma, a despicable thing despised by all cultivators. "My brother, Ku Hong, died at the hands of someone like you. I feel it was not worth it for him." He walked toward the guards, asking if they had seen the mystical object of his brother Ku Hong's foundation stabilization. Rising into the air, he sent them an invitation. "I would like everyone to take a look at mine now." Dao Xuanzi raised his hand, pointing to the sky, and conjured, "With the wonders of heaven and earth, I build my Taoist foundation." A giant sword appeared in the sky, tearing through the clouds, hundreds of thousands of times larger than anything that had ever appeared. With the sword above the heavens, Dao Xuanzi said with pride, "The name of my Dao foundation is Dao Xuan. I have a sword, and I invite everyone to see it." The sword fell upon Xuanjing City, completely swallowing it in the attack. Faced with the strike, Li Fan only murmured, "Huanzhen." The simulation ended, and instantly, Li Fan returned to the past. He was still panting heavily, for he still felt the attack the city had received. Is this an elite foundation establishment cultivator? If it weren't for the immortal mortal miasma, even if I reincarnated 100 times and used countless schemes, it would not be enough to pose a threat to them. Li Fan didn't expect the miasma to defeat Ko Hong and cause his Dao to vanish. He originally thought the two were not serious when they said they were brothers of hundreds of years. Their relationship was extraordinary, to say the least. He remembered that when they were attacked, Dao Xuanzi warned Ko Hong. Ko Hong, knowing he could not escape, did not hesitate to hand the core formation method to Dao Xuanzi. Dao Xuanzi, seeing Ko Hong perish by the ambush, was unable to accept such a fact, and gave up his chances of living, attacking with a sword art of mutual destruction. This showed that those two truly shared a friendship beyond the conventional. Li Fan then remembered something said by Dao Xuanzi the first time he saw him. The Dao of the Golden Core is a path that one must walk alone. Although there are so many methods of core foundation, there are countless cultivators stuck in the soul stabilization state. Those words left Li Fan pensive. The Dao of the Golden Core, a path walked alone. Immortal methods cannot be cultivated together. If it is so even for men as close as brothers, what is the cultivation world out there really like? Li Fan this time planned to play with Dao Xuanzi and Ku Hong like puppets. No matter how dangerous the path is, I will not waver. Besides, with the help of Huanzhen, as long as I am careful enough, no difficult situation can stop me. Since last time he decided to attack both at the same time, Li Fan now planned to make one defeat the other. Looking at his information, Li Fan discovered that his mental age limit had increased by only a dozen this time. Little by little, he approached the limit. If I count my lifespan before transmigrating, this is already my 5th timeline. The path to seeking immortality is difficult. I hope the last 50 years were not in vain. In the 35th year, Li Fan traveled to the Abyss of Ruin. From the experience he had in the last simulation, he knew that the dense fog over the abyss dissipated every 15 years. On that day, he had gone to the abyss to verify such a thing personally. After an unknown amount of time, a massive amount of white mist was forced to erupt from the abyss, traveling directly to the sky like an inverted waterfall. The great wind carrying the smoke lasted for a few minutes, until the heavy mist finally dispersed. Taking his telescope, Li Fan looked into the bottom of the ruined abyss. He knew that, according to intelligence, the scene appearing at the bottom of the abyss was different for everyone who looked at it. Li Fan's vision quickly approached the bottom of the abyss, but it was then that he glimpsed a destroyed city. The Tao had perished there. Li Fan trembled at the sight, wondering what had happened there. He wondered what had happened to the cultivation world. In this new life of Li Fan, as was tradition, Dao Xuanzi and Ko Hong appeared in the sky. Once again, bullets were fired in their direction as a voice echoed, "Ku Hong, you bastard! By the order of immortal Master Dao Xuanzi, we have been waiting for you." Protecting himself from the bullets with immortal mortal miasma, Ko Hong gnashed his teeth. "How is this possible? Did Dao Xuanzi know I would fly here?" Upon hearing the voice, Ko Hong turned to Dao Xuanzi, cursing him, "You despicable wretch!" However, Dao Xuanzi himself did not understand what was happening with these mortals or why they were attacking Ku Hong in his name. The place was simply too strange. Dao Xuanzi quickly tried to convince Ku Hong that the mortals were not under his command, but the voice emerged once more. "How can immortal master Dao Xuanzi turn his back on us like this? Did we not agree that as long as we eliminated Ko Hong and used the core formation method, you would lead my clan out of this forgotten immortal land?" Hearing the echoing voice of the old man, Ku Hong's fury increased even further. Beyond him and Dao Xuanzi, no one else should have known about the core formation method. Seeing that someone else knew the secret, Dao Xuanzi tried to use a technique to find their location. The sound waves originated from a point in the city shouting, "You should know, we attracted the wrath of the masses in the name of the immortal mortal miasma you spoke of. Public discontent is boiling. If the immortal master does not keep his promise and free us, I fear it won't be long before my clan has nowhere left to be buried." As the voice echoed, Dao Xuanzi found its location and charged toward it with fury. He crashed into a residence, destroying it completely in search of the owner of that voice. However, there was only a radio there, broadcasting the voice that accused him. "Is the immortal master trying to silence us now?" Dao Xuanzi ground his teeth irritably, wondering what kind of artifact that was. Furious, he attacked the radio with a burst of energy, making it evaporate. At that moment, Ko Hong appeared behind him, unleashing his flames and his furious voice. "Dao Xuanzi, we have known each other for hundreds of years, yet I never thought I would have judged you so wrong. You want the core formation method? Why resort to such dishonest tricks?" Dao Xuanzi's expression turned somber with accusations flying from both sides. Ku Hong, oblivious to the truth, charged toward him with flames in hand. "I will run no longer. If you have the skill, come to me and take the technique." To show he would be no easy prey, Ku Hong activated the Dao technique, Wrath of the Flame Dragon. A fire dragon emerged around Ko Hong, and a breath of fire was launched toward Dao Xuanzi. The cultivator under attack sighed and used his sword, which floated with energy. The sword flew toward the fire attack, and as they met, they struggled to force their way through one another. As the battle of strength unfolded, the old man's voice echoed again. "This Dao Xuanzi is fickle and vindictive. If he wins, there will be no escape for us. My children, obey my order. Help immortal Master Ku Hong deal with Dao Xuanzi." This time, Ko Hong laughed upon hearing the voice that would lead Dao Xuanzi to his self-destruction. "I never thought that you, who always carry such pride and act so noble, would break someone's trust and suffer the consequences." Being mocked in this way, Dao Xuanzi, with a purple-faced look of rage, cursed Ko Hong. "You idiot!" Ko Hong's words did not stop. "You think you're so clever, so why are you now abandoned by everyone? This is what they call being a victim of your own cunning." Having mastered a new Dao technique, Ko Hong extended 2 fingers to use it against Dao Xuanzi. Dao technique, Imprisoning Dragon. A cage of fire appeared around Dao Xuanzi, small enough to force him to his knees to avoid touching the flaming bars. Intent on breaking the imprisoning technique, Dao Xuanzi exploded his energy with a shout, "Break for me!" Summoning a great sword, Dao Xuanzi destroyed Ko Hong's technique, freeing himself and flying into the sky. Making a hand seal, Dao Xuanzi prepared to deal with Ko Hong. A gigantic sword appeared in the heavens, larger than several houses, aimed at Ko Hong and the city behind him. Ko Hong was excited to face him. Let's see if your Dao Xuan is more formidable, or if my Chu dragon staff is superior. Using the dragon transformation technique, Ko Hong transformed into a wooden staff enveloped by flames that formed a dragon. As the attacks clashed, fireballs flew toward Dao Xuanzi, while the voice echoed, "Immortal Master Ko Hong, we will help you." The fireballs exploded around Dao Xuanzi, releasing a red gas that completely enveloped him. Before Dao Xuanzi could realize it, the wooden staff had already pierced his body. The staff split and began to spread across Dao Xuanzi's body, covering almost his entire being. Dao Xuanzi, a cultivator at the Foundation Stabilization stage, cultivated for 201 years, and stabilized his Dao with the wondrous item Rusty Sword Dao Xuan. In the abandoned Immortal Land, he fought another immortal and was brutally eliminated at the hands of the cultivator Ku Hong. Now, his body perished, and his Dao vanished, returning to the heavens. In the sky above the city, the great sword summoned by Dao Xuanzi turned into ash in the wind. Li Fan observed the announcement in the heavens regarding Dao Xuanzi's defeat. That same voice had also appeared when Ko Hong perished in his previous life. Still thinking of Dao Xuanzi, Ko Hong descended from the skies and Li Fan greeted him. "I am Li Fan. I greet the immortal master. I beg for mercy to save the lives of the thousands of souls in my clan." However, he found himself facing Ku Hong's threatening gaze, who was pressuring him after discovering that the voice which dared to interfere in a combat between cultivators was his. Humbly, Li Fan tried to explain, "I was merely seeking a chance to survive. As I said, if the immortal master had been defeated, the men of my clan would certainly not escape." Repeating Li Fan's words with a sigh, Ko Hong asked, "The world is harsh. Who isn't seeking a chance to survive?" Before Li Fan could mention the promise Dao Xuanzi had supposedly made, Ko Hong interrupted him. For 100 years, Dao Xuanzi seemed to be a man of his word, but in reality, he acted without any principle, even deceiving mortals. That great formation that separates immortality is incredibly dangerous. Even for us, leaving it requires enormous effort. How could we take mortals with us? Li Fan was shocked by Ko Hong's words and questioned him if even he didn't know a way to leave the world they were in. Ko Hong nodded. Li Fan's words were correct. Since this was not an appropriate place to talk, Li Fan guided the immortal inside. The two headed to an underground shelter where sound was insulated. Serving a drink to Ko Hong, the protagonist broached the subject. "What the master said before, about being unable to take mortals out of this land, is it true?" Against a mere mortal, Ku Hong questioned why he would need to lie. Perhaps a cultivator at the Golden Core stage could protect mortals while breaking through that great formation. But for someone with a cultivation base at the Foundation Establishment stage, it is absolutely impossible. With a worried look, Li Fan asked if there truly was no hope for them, mere mortals. Ku Hong then declared that for someone to leave that land, they would need to pass through the immortal separation formation. With the fragile body of a mere mortal, it was impossible to do so. Changing the subject, he questioned, "You already have one foot in the grave. Why be so obsessed with this? Isn't being a local emperor enough?" Li Fan assumed a melancholy look while his weak voice revealed, "If my descendants could cultivate the Foundation stabilization realm like the immortal master, would it not be possible to leave this world?" Ko Hong laughed at the old man, frustrating him. "Let's not even mention that there isn't a single trace of spiritual energy here, making cultivation impossible. Just the fact that immortals and mortals are eternally separated. Mortals here are covered in miasma. How could they possibly cultivate the path of immortality?" Ko Hong advised Li Fan to give up the idea. "For mortals like you to cultivate, first, you must go to the outside world to rebuild your bodies and rid yourselves of this miasma. Otherwise, even if the great Tao of immortality were placed right before you, you could see it, but never touch it." Hearing that immortals and mortals would be forever separated, Li Fan trembled nervously. His eyes widened hopelessly, and like a last thread, he asked, "Is there really no way?" Ku Hong nodded, crushing his hope. Thus, Li Fan left the immortal master behind. If the immortal master has no other instructions, this old man will leave now. As soon as Li Fan left the room, the wall closed behind him. Ku Hong was startled as a thick miasma filled the room. Only Ku Hong's scream could be heard echoing through the small gap in the wall. When silence returned once more, Li Fan questioned, "Since immortals and mortals cannot coexist, why would I believe your words?" According to Ko Hong, that place was the immortal abandoned land. The cause of it all originated from a great change in the ancient cultivation world thousands of years ago. Initially, no cultivator paid heed to this plague among mortals until the first cultivator was infected by it. The plague then spread among cultivators. The transmission vector was the spiritual energy that cultivators relied on to survive. The plague, through the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, quickly spread throughout the entire cultivation world. for cultivators infected with the plague. A mild case meant their cultivation base would regress and their realm would drop. A severe case meant the total loss of their cultivation base overnight, making them indistinguishable from a mortal. After that, their body would perish, and the Dao would vanish, returning the Dao to the heavens. In a desperate act, the cultivators unleashed their rage upon the source of everything, the mortals. Thus, a massive hunting campaign began. But after a long time, the campaign was forcibly halted. Not only did the plague not disappear with the end of the mortals, it seemed to have lost its restrictions, spreading through the spiritual energy that permeated heaven and earth. This led to the defeat of many more cultivators. But waiting for their end was not the way cultivators acted. On one hand, a group of cultivators began to research methods to treat and resist the plague. On the other hand, cultivators proposed the infamous Great Migration Plan. This involved banishing all mortals from the cultivation world to the surrounding minor worlds and the small, shattered heavens that lacked spiritual energy. They would then use magical formations to isolate them permanently, preventing these mortals from returning forever. Originally, there were no more mortals in the cultivation world, but not all descendants of cultivators had the aptitude for the cultivation of immortality. Thus, over time, many new mortals were born in that world. Within the bodies of these mortals, the shadow of the plague persisted. Since the plague had a particularly devastating effect on immortal cultivation, the descendants of mortals who wished to cultivate first needed to purge the plague from their bodies. With time, the plague became a synonym for the distinction between mortals and immortals. Thus, people named the plague the immortal mortal miasma. Li Fan trembled as he finished reading the words and the writings in his hands. Legend has it that, to prevent cultivators of the immortal sex from straying from the path, the progenitor mortals were exiled to the places that would become what mortals call the immortal abandoned lands. Li Fan did not know exactly how many abandoned lands existed, and the number of cultivators willing to face the immense risk of entering these locations was even smaller. Finding 2 cultivators turned out to be a stroke of great fortune. Li Fan knew that, as a mortal, his lifespan was limited. Even if he could continually simulate lifetimes, he would only be repeating actions confined to his current lifespan. In this life, he was already 70 years old, and his remaining psychological lifespan was around 800 years. In the 16 years of life he had left in this timeline, the possibility of finding another cultivator was almost zero. With a somber look, Li Fan crushed the paper in his hand. Am I destined to repeat this same mortal life in every timeline? After waiting bitterly for nearly 300 years, how can I resign myself to this? While wondering if there was another way, Li Fan thought of something. He immediately returned to where Ko Hong was and questioned, how did the mortals in the Great Migration reach the Forbidden Lands? The now chained Ko Hong arched an eyebrow. You still haven't given up? So what if you managed to get out of here? At 70 years old, do you still wish to seek the cultivation of immortality? Li Fan approached Ko Hong and questioned him. Your cultivation has already vanished completely. If you return to the cultivation world, could you go back to cultivating? With Ko Hong becoming shocked, Li Fan promised, if you help me find a way to enter the cultivation world, I will take you with me. Ko Hong did not believe Li Fan's words. You disgusting villain, do you think you can fool me? Li Fan would not give up and warned, whether it's true or not, it's still a drop of hope for you. Will you give up the path of survival just to become older and older in this place? Ko Hong sighed, and after a moment of silence, he revealed, if I am not mistaken, what they used back then were Dharma artifacts, similar to flying arcs or flying shuttles. Ko Hong revealed that in ancient times, the cultivation world was crowded with people. Sects were numerous, prominent, and incredibly prosperous. This type of large-scale transport was extremely popular. To Ko Hong, it was a pity that a great cataclysm had fallen upon heaven and earth, making every cultivator fear for their life and start acting alone. Today, flying in arcs was a rare thing that was almost never done. Shocked by this story of the cataclysm, Li Fan questioned if Ko Hong was referring to the Great Plague. Ko Hong denied it, for although the miasma was something bizarre, it could not shake the foundation of cultivators. The reason why the immortal mortal miasma was able to spread unchecked was that most of the world's cultivators had perished in a great calamity. The words spoken by Dao Xuanzi about the golden core being cultivated by people alone once again surfaced in Li Fan's mind. Shocked, the protagonist asked upon understanding the situation, could it be that immortal techniques cannot be cultivated by more than one person? Dejected, Ko Hong nodded. He remembered they used to say that in ancient times, such restrictions did not exist. At that time, countless great cultivation sects opened their doors, accepting disciples and teaching their arts. Cultivators would receive guidance from their masters and could ask for help whenever they encountered difficulties in their practices. They could also battle to exchange discoveries with companions who cultivated the same methods as them. Such a vibrant and magnificent scene spread throughout the entire world of Cultivation. The world was like this until one day, the efficiency of the cultivators' practice dropped drastically. While cultivating, they felt a connection in their hearts, knowing exactly the number of people in the cultivation world who possessed the same technique. They also made a horrific discovery. The more people cultivated the same technique simultaneously, the lower the cultivation efficiency would be for everyone. Countless cultivators could no longer advance their base, not even by another inch. Their lifespans dropped, and the fury in their hearts could no longer be hidden. Masters and apprentices, martial brothers and sisters of the past, all became enemies in an instant. A calamity that swept across the entire cultivation world like a wave began. Anyone who practiced the same method as another would be obstructing their path of the Tao, and this would lead them to a battle where only one of them would survive. Not even the renegade cultivators who tried to take refuge by hiding in deep mountains and secret realms could escape, because according to Ko Hong, cultivators practicing the same method could feel each other's location. Since immortal techniques could no longer be cultivated by more than one person, Li Fan questioned how cultivators practiced. How is the cultivation world today? Ko Hong sighed, revealing that there were not many choices for those who wanted to cultivate. The first method was to join the Alliance of the Myriad Immortals. It was an informal coalition formed by numerous cultivators. It was possible to exchange cultivation methods and resources using contribution points within the alliance. One could obtain such points by accepting and completing missions or by trading items with others. The second method was through the Council of Five Elders. The council was an organization founded by the 5 most powerful figures, and their influence was gigantic. As long as someone possessed the aptitude for cultivation, they could voluntarily choose a cultivation method. The price would be signing a soul contract and serving the council for a certain period of time. Through Ko Hong's description, Li Fan felt that cultivation methods in the immortal world were not that scarce. Ko Hong explained the reason. The methods obtained today are incomplete. These methods are new compilations made by major powers over the years. Reaching the peak of chi condensation is the limit for such people. First, one would need to reach the peak of chi condensation, such as through the purple cloud art. After that, advance and reach the peak of foundation establishment, utilizing, for example, the 9 revolution amplification art. Next, the peak of the golden core would be available through the solar art technique, for example. However, to advance to each level, a new cultivation method was necessary. The same applied to the realms. Above, pensive, Li Fan scratched his beard. If I change methods, won't my previous effort be in vain? Ko Hong explained that this did not happen. Everyone who cultivated had to practice a fragment of the supreme primordial true scripture. It was not a cultivation method, but a secret technique. Its function was to allow a cultivator to voluntarily disperse their realm without significant losses. After dispersing their cultivation to switch to another method, they could quickly reach the realm they were originally in. Upon discovering that such a miraculous method existed, Li Fan was shocked but understood. Such a fragment appearing at such an opportune moment must have ensured that many cultivators in the world could be convinced to accept the constant changing of their cultivation methods. But Ko Hong didn't think they could do much. A true method was hard to obtain. Dao Xuanzi himself had perished without even knowing that the reason he had snatched that method and fled was not because of the core formation method, but because it was a true method that could lead him directly to the nascent soul realm. The more Ko Hong spoke, the more Li Fan was impressed. Next, Ko Hong introduced him to some common knowledge of the cultivation world. For example, how the perishing of a cultivator could trigger celestial phenomena within a certain range. After that, Ko Hong returned to the main subject. Cao Hong revealed a rumor he had heard. They say that mortals from the Forgotten Lands are secretly returning to the cultivation world, but that is more like idle talk and meaningless street rumors, without any concrete evidence. However, Li Fan believed that where there was smoke, there was fire. Every rumor had a grain of truth. Since there was a small point of hope, he was willing to not give up. Ko Hong still didn't understand how an old man with one foot in the grave could still be so restless. Li Fan, intending to find the path to the cultivation world, vowed, "As long as you help me, not only will I release you and take you with me, but I will also return all your possessions and those of Dao Xuanzi." Li Fan added a crucial point to the negotiation. "I will also return the nascent soul method to you." Ko Hong was shocked to hear the old man. "Are you serious?" Li Fan appeared to be telling the truth, so Ko Hong bellowed, "In that case, I will do my best to help you." Thus, with Ko Hong's help, Li Fan collected historical books and records scattered all over the world. He was committed to finding clues about the era of the Great Migrations from the scattered fragments of ancient records. At the same time, he mobilized armies to excavate ancient tombs on a large scale, trying to find any clue. Although this exacerbated popular revolt and led authorities to daily present petitions to reprimand him, he suppressed them all with violence. Unfortunately, much time had passed since the era of the Great Migrations, and the lifespan he had left in this world was very short. 16 years later, in a secret underground chamber, Li Fan isolated himself. He saw his lifespan coming to an end without finding anything. His body was already fragile like a candle flickering in the wind. His life could be extinguished at any moment. However, before that life ended, he first wanted to confirm the items that were inside the storage ring. The first item found by Li Fan was the Thousand Mysteries Jade Cosmos Golden Chapter, Nascent Soul Realm Cultivation Method. Currently, no cultivator possessed such a technique. Seeing such a technique made Li Fan sigh for still being just a mortal without a divine sense. It was like sitting on a mountain of treasures but having no way to enjoy them. The second item found by him was the rusty sword Dao Xuan. According to Ko Hong, after cultivators perished, the wondrous item that founded their establishment would lose its wondrous nature as the practitioner's body perished and the Dao disappeared. Shock suddenly appeared in Li Fan's gaze, for in front of the sword, a holographic window emerged. Rechargeable item discovered, rusty sword Dao Xuan, damaged. Proceed with recharging? Li Fan did not hesitate to accept. Dao Xuan's sword flickered, and a progress bar emerged, though only 1% was marked. He had spent only a single point. The protagonist nearly rolled his eyes. He discovered, based on the feedback from the truth restoration system, that once the scenario progress reached 100%, a second anchor point would be unlocked. In the future, everything would be virtualized, and when he chose to return, he could choose to restart from any anchor point. For Li Fan, who needed to live at least 50 years to find the cultivators, a second save point would be extremely convenient. Although miraculous items were rare, the cultivation world was vast. Li Fan felt there would be countless wonders once he arrived. I just need to manage to leave this forgotten immortal land and escape these shackles. Aside from some common spirit stones, there was nothing else of value in the storage ring. Li Fan could now abandon that life and move on to the next. Using the truth restoration system, Li Fan chose one of the simulation options, return with an item. All the items within the storage ring shifted, and the system prompted him to choose only one. Since he could only pick one, Li Fan chose the nascent soul cultivation method. In Li Fan's status info, the chosen item was marked as bound to his soul, which left him surprised. Does this mean the cultivation method will permanently exist within the truth restoration system? Li Fan smiled mischievously. Such a thing opened up infinite possibilities. In Li Fan's previous life, ordering large-scale excavations of ancient tombs to find the path to the cultivation world had been too shocking. Even with his firm control over the imperial court, he had faced great opposition. He knew that if the court forced him to back down from the start, his quest would be unsustainable. But if I start planning from this moment in 20 years, it might not be impossible to change the mindset of the entire world. Time began to flow, and Li Fan's sixth life began. Exercising his influence behind the scenes, many small changes started to occur in the world. By the 5th year, the Antique Search School emerged out of nowhere. The school brought countless ancient texts to the capital for an audience with the emperor. The exquisite and peerless nature of these ancient texts, rarely seen in the world, shook the nation. The texts had powerful names: the Book of Changes, the Tao Te Ching, the Southern Flower, the Analects, and the Great Learning. In the 6th year, the emperor suddenly fell ill and was confined to his chambers. All the imperial physicians were in complete despair. It was then that the Antique Search School presented the emperor with an elixir. At the gates of death, the emperor consumed the elixir, and to everyone's surprise, it had a miraculous effect. In just a few days, the emperor recovered completely. In the 11th year, the Zhanghuai prefecture discovered a serious case of tomb robbing, arresting a team of over 100 thieves. The prefect of Zhanghuai, Li Fan, did not dare act on his own authority. He wrote a memorial and sent it to Xuanjing City, requesting His Majesty's judgment. After a month, the emperor's decree arrived. The team of thieves was not sentenced to death, but were instead imprisoned and sent to the capital. In the 15th year, the emperor fell ill again. Desiring to extend his life with an immortal pill, he sent over 100,000 troops to excavate ancient tombs everywhere in search of such medicine. Unfortunately, the immortal pill was hard to find. The emperor passed away with regret, and the trend of seeking ancient tombs became even stronger throughout the country. Before his departure, the emperor abdicated the throne to Prince Langya. With this, Li Fan once again began to secretly control the world. In the 23rd year, following the excavations of ancient tombs, a lost piece of history was gradually pieced together. The dynasty that was traced back was called the Qi dynasty. Li Fan offered a reward to the world. Anyone who could find a tomb from the Qi dynasty would receive the noble title of Marquis. By the 25th year, the tomb of the first emperor of the Qi dynasty, Yi Xing, was finally found. In just 1 month, a passage to the main burial chamber was excavated. After all obstacles were removed, Li Fan entered the interior of the tomb, surrounded by his retinue. The passage to the main tomb formed a tunnel several hundred meters long. Vivid murals were drawn on the walls. Despite thousands of years having passed, they were still clearly visible. Upon reaching the main burial chamber, they found a floor 40 to 50 meters high and several thousand meters long and wide. The ceiling seemed to mimic the arrangement of the stars, encrusted with tens of thousands of luminous pearls. Mountain peaks rose one after another, submerged in a sea of clouds. It was unknown how this sea of clouds had formed. It remained fixed within the chamber, never shifting. Even after several thousand years, it had not dissipated. Invisible trails connected the various mountain peaks, and everyone walked through in wonder. At the top of the highest peak was a simple thatched hut. The fertile fields outside remained barren. As they approached, they realized the thatch of the hut was actually woven from countless fine threads of gold. Knowing that the hut must be Yi Xing's sarcophagus, Li Fan ordered 2 guards to open it. Once the guards opened the dusty location, they made way for Li Fan. The protagonist was shocked by what he saw and arched an eyebrow. There sat a small pot in front of a wooden plaque that read, "Tomb of Yi Xing, outer disciple of the Taihang sect." Reading the information, Li Fan discovered that Yi Xing likely never stepped onto the path of immortality because he was an outer disciple, and for that reason, he had been exiled. Even in his final moments, Yi Xing could not forget his sect, identifying himself not as an emperor, but as an outer disciple of the Taihang sect. Li Fan knew, however, thanks to Cao Hong, that all the sects in the world should have perished during the Great Calamity prior to the era of Great Migrations. This made it seem as though there was a secret history behind it. To Li Fan, it was probable that this Yi Xing had been tasked by the cultivators of the Taihang sect to oversee the Great Migration of this world. What Li Fan wanted to know was if they would be able to find the flying ark used in the migration. The search of the main tomb yielded nothing. Li Fan ordered the antique search camp to excavate the surrounding area, and thus, days later, news arrived. Kneeling before Li Fan, the Grand Tutor, a subordinate reported, "The antique search camp found a record mentioning the words flying ark in the list of funerary goods of a nearby tomb chamber. However, that tomb was robbed a long time ago, over 1,000 years ago." Shock and fury flared in Li Fan's eyes. Darkly, he murmured, "It ends like this once again." Wildly, Li Fan flipped the table, throwing his belongings to the floor. His bloodshot eyes overflowed with hatred. "Every time I find a shred of hope, it turns out to be unattainable, like the moon's reflection in the water." The man remained on his knees, waiting for Li Fan to calm down and relay a new order. Once he recovered, Li Fan commanded, "A reward for the world. Whoever finds clues related to the immortal ark shall receive the title of Marquis of 1,000 families." In the 35th year, news arrived once more. Now white-haired, Li Fan listened to the man say, "A few days ago, a group of people was excavating an ordinary tomb when they were suddenly struck by a mysterious force, suffering heavy casualties. Remaining on his knees, he revealed that the antique search camp did not dare to be negligent and sent men to investigate overnight. Even with many highly experienced veterans, they could not disturb this small tomb in the slightest." Li Fan stood up immediately, declaring, "Bring the mortal immortal miasma and open the tomb at once." The antique search team used the miasma liquid, pouring it over the tomb to weaken it. Soon, the veil of energy covering the tomb began to dissolve. Leading the group of excavators, Li Fan ordered, "Be careful during the excavation. Report immediately if you find anything resembling a flying ark." A month later, a new report arrived. Among the funerary objects, there is an object that resembles a flying ark. Li Fan rushed to the tomb, and as he approached the item they found, surprise flashed in his eyes. Before Li Fan lay a tiny wooden boat, smaller even than a hand. The small wooden boat was the flying ark that Li Fan had sought for so long. Through a message carved on the tomb walls by the owner before perishing, Li Fan discovered the full story. It turned out that the owner of the tomb was named Qian Hong, a cultivator at the Foundation establishment stage. More than 3,000 years ago, he was hunted by his enemies, and having nowhere else to go, hid in this forgotten immortal land. The forgotten immortal land is completely devoid of spiritual energy, and he did not possess many spirit stones. Before long, his spirit stones were exhausted, and without them to replenish his spiritual energy, his cultivation base deteriorated day by day. He speculated that when mortals were exiled here thousands of years ago, they might have left behind 1 or 2 flying arks. So he investigated everywhere, spending decades before finally finding the tomb of Yi Xing. Indeed, there was a flying ark in the tomb. But to his despair, the core power spell formation inside the ark was already damaged. Furthermore, he did not know the art of artifact refining, so he could not fix it. At that point, Qianhong finally gave up on the idea of leaving this land forsaken by the immortals. On the wall of the tomb, his final words were written, "To those of a future generation who happen to find my tomb, if you clean it, you may take one of the 4 cultivation items found here, as thanks for what remains." With the protection spell outside the tomb, Qianhong was likely certain that only cultivators would enter. Looking at the cracked stone tombstone, Li Fan discovered that it, the hating tombstone fragment, was truly a wondrous item of heaven and earth. That item had guarded the tomb for a long time. Unfortunately, the return of truth was not reacting to it. Li Fan had already used a large amount of immortal mortal miasma to force his way into the tomb, and now the star fragment was being affected by it, losing its effect and becoming merely a common stone. Li Fan then looked at the 2 scrolls near the tombstone. They were the Qi condensation stage method and the foundation establishment stage method. Both were currently being used by a single cultivator. Discovering that they were being used made Li Fan's eyes go wide with worry, for this could be a trap. However, he recovered mentally. More than 300 years had already passed, and even a golden core cultivator should have turned to ash by now. While wondering why someone was cultivating such methods, Li Fan thought of something. Is it possible that this method possesses a copy? After the Great Calamity, many cultivation methods were compiled by major powers like the Myriad Immortals Alliance and the Council of 5 Elders. Therefore, there should be copies of them. When the administration of these great powers notices a method that no one is cultivating, they resurrect it for people to use. In other words, over the last 3,000 years, who knows how many owners these 2 methods have had. Li Fan put the items down as they were extremely corrupted. He then checked the 3rd item, the Taihang Ark. After changing hands over thousands of years, it finally fell into Li Fan's hands. Picking up the Ark, Li Fan was able to read the information about it. The Taihang Ark is a tool used by the Taihang sect to migrate mortals. Its internal formation is damaged. Hundreds of years of waiting, and Li Fan's wish had finally been realized. Although the Taihang Ark was damaged, he didn't feel he needed to worry. Qianhong couldn't fix it, and he, Li Fan, couldn't either, but he knew someone who could. After the 50 years, Dao Xuanzi and Ko Hong appeared in the sky above the city once again, fighting for the cultivation method. That was when a voice emerged. Is a mere core formation method really worth fighting for until only one remains alive? Dao Xuanzi and Ko Hong were surprised by the voice. They looked down, shouting, "Who is there? Who is the arrogant, insolent one?" Li Fan introduced himself and invited the 2 for a chat. Dao Xuanzi and Ko Hong entered Li Fan's mansion and sat in silence. On his throne, Li Fan laughed while drinking happily. "Long ago, my ancestor said on his deathbed that in future generations, 2 people might come from the east of the abyssal ruins and set foot in the capital, and that this would be the chance for our clan to escape this place. For thousands of years, those of my clan were skeptical, but having it proven today deserves a great toast." Curious, Ko Hong asked for the name of the old man receiving them. Li Fan introduced himself bluntly. Probing, Dao Xuanzi went straight to the point. "From what you say, your ancestors saw our arrival thousands of years ago. What do you mean by an opportunity to escape this place?" With a sharp look, Li Fan stared at both men, questioning them. "Do you not believe me?" For Ko Hong, the story was too fantastic. The 2 had already participated in the cultivation world for over 100 years and had never heard of a deduction art that could predict events 1,000 years in advance. Standing up, Li Fan asked both of them, "I wonder, have you ever heard of the Taiyan sect?" Ko Hong stood up, extremely shocked. Could it be the sect from ancient times that was renowned throughout the world for its arts of deduction? The protagonist sighed in relief, seeing that Ko Hong recognized the sect's name. With an air of superiority, he ended Ko Hong's surprise. "Relax. My ancestor was actually a member of the Taiyan sect." Li Fan told a story to the pair. Back then, although my ancestor had joined the Taiyan sect, he did not like cultivation, and instead became obsessed with the art of deduction and calculations. At the time, it was fine, but who could have imagined the great cataclysm where all mortals were exiled? Since my ancestor was at the cultivation base of the early Qi condensation stage, no one would have forced him if he didn't want to go. However, my ancestor saw the panic among his family members, so he volunteered to handle the migration of the mortals. After that, he remained in this land with his family. Hearing the story, Dao Xuanzi asked Li Fan why he had stopped them. Li Fan responded with a detailed explanation. "No cultivator has appeared in these lands for thousands of years. Seeing you 2 today, I knew you were the ones my ancestor prophesied, the key to my clan's escape. When I saw you were about to fight over a core formation method, I had to hurry and stop you." Dao Xuanzi sighed, as if Li Fan's words were amusing. "You must think us funny, fellow Taoist, but you must know that cultivation methods are hard to find in the outside world. Fighting over a single scroll is normal. This time, it was Li Fan's turn to sigh, catching Dao Xuanzi's attention. The protagonist raised his fingers pointing to the sky, shouting, "Before my ancestor departed, he left behind a cultivation method that leads directly to the Golden Core realm." Ko Hong got excited for Dao Xuanzi. "If you get this method, we won't need to fight anymore." Anxious to obtain the training method, Dao Xuanzi hurriedly asked what Li Fan wanted in return. Li Fan again brought up the story of an ancestor. "My ancestor wished to return to the Taihang sect. Besides the cultivation method, he also left us an artifact called the Taihang Arc. Although it is damaged, my ancestor used the art of Taihang to calculate for many years, eventually discovering that 2 cultivators would come here. The cultivators cited by Li Fan were one skilled in the sword and another who loved artifact refining. Dao Xuanzi knew immediately that the prophecy was citing them. My brother Ku Hong truly is devoted to artifact refining, and my specialty is sword techniques. This Taihang art is so incredible." Since just talking wasn't enough, Li Fan headed in a direction, asking Dao Xuanzi to follow him to look at the method first. As soon as Dao Xuanzi stood up, he saw Ko Hong stand up as well, and stared at him with a dark look. "Brother, you have already obtained a core formation method. Are you not satisfied?" Ko Hong realized his mistake and retreated. Thus, Li Fan and Dao Xuanzi went on alone. As soon as they arrived in an underground chamber, Dao Xuanzi trembled upon seeing a dark energy. Before him, Li Fan crossed a broken wall, entering a place filled with immortal mortal miasma. Li Fan turned to him, explaining so Dao Xuanzi wouldn't misunderstand. "We all need to be careful. We are just mortals, and to protect our family's greatest treasure, we have no other choice." From where he stood, Li Fan asked the Taoist to take a look at the cultivation method left by his ancestor. Li Fan then picked up a jade scroll, causing its information to appear. That was the Thousand Mysteries Jade Cosmos. Golden Chapter, a method for the nascent soul realm currently cultivated by 0 people. Upon seeing a cultivation method for the nascent soul realm, Dao Xuanzi froze completely. His eyes widened in disbelief. Seeing his reaction, Li Fan smiled, satisfied. Extending the scroll, he asked, "How about this? Is this old man telling the truth? Earlier, in front of your brother Ku Hong, I only said my ancestor left us a core formation method because I was afraid he would have greedy thoughts again." Facing a scroll a level above the core formation level, Dao Xuanzi nodded and praised, "You are shrewd, fellow Taoist. I am impressed. Rest assured, my brother Ku Hong is an expert in artifact refining. I will definitely persuade him to help you restore the Ark." Hearing Dao Xuanzi, Li Fan laughed. "Very well, I am counting on you. Once it is ready, I will place the cultivation method in your hands." When Dao Xuanzi returned, Ko Hong asked hurriedly, "What Li Fan said wasn't a lie? Does he really possess a core formation method scroll?" Dao Xuanzi confirmed the information. "I saw it with my own eyes." Immediately greed took over Ku Hong, who planned to obtain such a method, even if by force. Ko Hong conveyed the possibility to Dao Xuanzi, but although Li Fan was merely a mortal, Dao Xuanzi recognized him as a descendant of the Taiyan sect. The incredible deduction from earlier left him fearful that if they tried to take the scroll by force, the other side might use some trick against them. Dao Xuanzi believed that repairing the Ark would be easy, so he asked Ko Hong why he wanted to agitate the situation further. Internally, Dao Xuanzi believed that if Li Fan faced a moment of despair, it would be a disaster if he revealed that the cultivation method was a nascent soul method. The next day, Li Fan handed the Ark over to the 2 of them for repairs. Upon holding the Ark, Ku Hong truly recognized it as being from the Taiyan sect. The ingenuity of its refinement, the depth of its magical formations, both far surpass what I have learned. If I can repair it, my Tao of artifact refining will surely advance. Hearing this, Li Fan felt comfortable leaving the Ark with him. "Feel free to ask for whatever you need. This old man will provide what he can." Cultivation takes no account of years. What seemed like a small wooden boat took nearly an entire year for Ko Hong and his partner to fix. On that day, upon learning that the Taiyan Ark was repaired, Li Fan hurriedly went to meet them. The Ark delivered to Li Fan glowed with magical circles. Upon handing it to the old man, Ku Hong explained, "The core power spell formation of the Taiyan Ark, its size-shifting formation, its dust-cleansing formation, and others have been fully repaired. Only the offensive and defensive formation spells are limited by materials, so we could only manage simple repairs." Despite this, Ku Hong stated he believed that crossing the immortal separating formation would not be a great problem. Only dealing with attacks from other cultivators would end up being troublesome. However, Li Fan felt that it didn't matter. "As long as I can cross the great immortal separating formation and return to the cultivation world, fulfilling my ancestor's wish and returning to the Taiyan sect will be enough." Ko Hong explained that the Taiyan Ark was powered by spiritual energy and must be controlled with divine sense. It can transform into 3 levels of size and shape. In the first form, it is 10 meters long and 3 meters wide. The second form is 100 meters long, and the full form is an incredible 1 kilometer. We too do not possess many spirit stones, but the ones I have placed as fuel are enough for you to leave this place using the second form. Confident, Kuhong declared that piloting the ark required at least the chi condensation stage. It seems you will need us, fellow Taoist. While Kuhong was boasting, Li Fan raised 2 fingers, channeling his energy into the ark. Dao Xuanzi and Kuhong were startled when the ark expanded to a size of 10 meters. Kuhong was open-mouthed. Fellow Taoist, your methods are truly extraordinary. To be able to control the Taiyan arc despite being immortal. Hearing the praise, Li Fan laughed. Don't mention it, it's just a small trick. Humbly, Li Fan thanked the Taoists. After being trapped here for over 1,000 years, there is finally hope of escape, all thanks to your efforts. Dao Xuanzi, somewhat anxious, approached. Now that the Taiyan arc is repaired, Li Fan interrupted him, asking him to follow. 3 days later, Kuhong and Dao Xuanzi, who had obtained the cultivation method, gathered to bid Li Fan moves. Dao Xuanzi spoke first. Fellow Taoist, we don't have many spirit stones left. If we stay in this abandoned land of mortals any longer, it's possible our cultivation base will decline. Kuhong, with a slap to his own chest, affirmed, Comrade, if you manage to reach the cultivation world, come find me in Lingtian City, within the Kongyun Mountains. With spiritual power, Kuhong handed a map to Li Fan. It was a map of the area near the exit of the immortal separating formation, something he had drawn from memory, so it might not be 100% accurate. After a few more greetings, Kuhong and Dao Xuanzi finally transformed into 2 streaks of light and departed. Kuhong flew ahead and commented to Dao Xuanzi, that Li Fan has a remarkable mindset. He is someone memorable. It's a pity his great limit is approaching. Even if he manages to return to the cultivation world, he will only have a few more years to live. Dao Xuanzi thought otherwise. Without reaching longevity, everything else is an illusion. Did we not even turn against each other for a chance to achieve greater longevity? Entering this subject, Kuhong asked what cultivation method Li Fan had given to Dao Xuanzi. Dao Xuanzi replied mysteriously, leaving no openings. It is certainly not the same as yours. Don't worry, when I undergo closed-door cultivation and enter the Golden Core stage, I will not forget the 3 things I promised you. While the 2 traveled to the abyss, Dao Xuanzi commented, the protective formation mist hasn't dispersed yet. Does brother want to venture through it? Accepting the challenge, Kuhong surged forward. Ha 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 ha! What is there to fear? Later, in the east of the Abyss of Ruin, a small ark traveled flying at a low altitude. In the command cabin of the Taiyan Ark, Li Fan had a third-person view of the Ark through magic. There were still 14 years left before the white mist would disperse again, but he was already 71 years old. When the time came, he would be 85, and his great limit would be approaching, which would make it difficult for him to even pilot the Taiyan Ark. This left him with no choice but to abandon this life. But first, he decided to test the reality of the great immortal separating formation. The Ark flew into the abyss, which was surrounded by a dense mist. The surrounding environment was a vast white expanse, giving Li Fan a sense of extreme unreality. Suddenly, as if it had hit something, the hull of the Taiyan Ark began to shake violently. Li Fan gritted his teeth, recognizing it as the astral wind layer. According to Kuhong, the wind blades there could easily tear a mortal apart. Even cultivators in the foundation establishment stage would need spiritual energy protection techniques to pass through. Li Fan was grateful the Ark had a defensive magic formation, otherwise the consequences would be unimaginable. Nearly half an hour later, the scenery around Li Fan changed. He carefully controlled the Taihang Ark, and after half an hour of effort, finally crossed the astral wind layer. Li Fan was relieved, as the vibrations finally ceased, replaced by an infinite light ahead. Finally, Li Fan had managed to escape the immortal separating formation. After reaching the cultivation world, he came across a rare cultivation method. In just 100 years, he formed his golden core. The cultivation path Li Fan walked from then on was smooth. 1,000 years later, he reached the ascended Tao. Upon reaching the immortal realm, he started over as the lowest-ranking immortal official, cultivating step by step until eventually becoming the immortal emperor who dominated the entire immortal realm. Then, breaking through the spatial barrier of the immortal realm, he ascended to the divine realm. Starting as a miner in the divine realm, after 10,000 years, he reached the God King realm and became the most powerful existence in the divine realm. After that, Li Fan went through countless hardships to ascend to the primordial God realm, becoming a low-level guardian in that realm. And then, he started from zero again with great effort. It was then that Li Fan woke up. He was still in his aged state, inside the Ark. He realized that everything he had lived through had been merely an illusion of the illusory light layer. Li Fan looked out the window and saw countless mountain peaks surrounded by a dense mist that covered the rest of the ranges. Looking at the map made by Kuhong, Li Fan discovered that he had already left the illusory light layer and arrived at the third layer of the immortal abandoned continent, the inverted layer. It was truly possible to see, in the sky, the same mountains that Li Fan saw when looking down. Li Fan discovered that he only woke up because the Taihang arc had automatically navigated out of the illusory light layer. Pensively, Li Fan wondered how he had lost consciousness in the illusory light layer, and yet the arc was able to travel to the inverted layer alone. This led him to believe he could let the arc control its own path, while he merely provided power for it to accelerate. An intuition from the Taihang arc was transmitted to Li Fan, telling him which path to follow. Following the guide of the Taihang arc, Li Fan accelerated endlessly. Soon, the arc reached the fourth layer of the immortal abandoned continent, the fire flow layer. As expected, following the direction of the arc's will, Li Fan smoothly reached the fourth layer. Li Fan was excited about the journey. This Taihang arc was specifically responsible for the migration of mortals 1,000 years ago. The cultivator who created it must have left a secret function so that the Taihang arc could automatically pass through the immortal abandoned continent. Having proven success, Li Fan did not try to control it deliberately, merely providing energy and letting the Taihang arc fly on its own through this forgotten immortal continent. Thus, he reached the fifth layer, the deep ice layer. Intense fire, deep ice, storms, these places seemed exceptionally dangerous, but the Taihang arc always managed to narrowly escape one devastating crisis after another. The journey was full of scares, but no real danger. Thus, without further ado, he reached the final layer, the darkness layer. According to Ko Hong, this layer particularly was not dangerous. It was merely a world of darkness, as its name suggested. Li Fan was extremely anxious. He knew that after passing through that layer, the cultivation world would be just ahead. After 6 lives of reincarnations, he had finally reached his goal. However, it was there that a huge mouth emerged, ready to swallow the Taiyan arc as if it were a mere snack. Seeing what looked like a whale in the darkness, Li Fan immediately used the return of truth. As soon as the simulation ended, Li Fan returned to the moment he had arrived in such a world. He panted heavily, wondering what had just happened. When Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi passed through the formation, they encountered nothing in the darkness layer. Therefore, Li Fan wondered exactly why he did. Li Fan wondered if that was something that attacked only mortals. The safest plan seemed to be waiting for the dense mist to lower and for the light to appear at the bottom of the abyss of ruin before exploring it. Although Li Fan failed at the last moment, the gains from his past life were much greater than he expected. After choosing to retain the Taiyan arc, he immediately began his 7th life. In the 4th year, Li Fan led his trusted subordinates and secretly arrived at Chen Hong's tomb. This time, he used a spray containing immortal mortal miasma to slowly corrode the barrier until the power of the star fragment that stopped it was so weakened that it couldn't pierce armor. This time, Li Fan discovered the damaged tombstone fragment, and the option to recharge it appeared to him. Li Fan immediately chose to recharge it and saw the recharge progress reach 26%. It was a pity the item had taken so much damage, but the anchor recharge progress had increased by 25%. Li Fan imagined that if he could get 3 more items like this, he could obtain the 2nd time anchor. The other items were of no great value to Li Fan. After ordering his men to reseal the tomb, he left the site. In the 5th year, Li Fan could no longer resist and went to the abyss of ruin. Li Fan was there just to take a look. He didn't plan to go down. Li Fan could see the dark bottom of the abyss through the low mist. Li Fan's pupils began to turn red, and at that moment he imagined that if he piloted the Taiyan arc right then, he might be able to travel peacefully through the entire immortal realm. Looking continually downward, Li Fan had a thought. I have already waited for so long. Do I really need to wait for another 15 years? So what if the return of truth isn't fully charged? How can I reach the great Tao if I am so fearful? Li Fan's gaze seemed uncontrolled. I already tested this once in my last life. As long as I am careful enough to avoid that unknown monster in the darkness layer, I can leave this godforsaken place. It was just as Li Fan placed a foot on the edge of the abyss that a burst of light overflowed, forcing him back. A sign appeared to him, along with memories of destruction. The path of immortality has perished. Li Fan panted heavily. In the preceding moments, countless voices had emerged in his head, luring him into the abyss. Thanks to the explosion of light, he recovered. 15 years later, the return of truth had finally recharged. With his confidence renewed, Li Fan at last returned to the abyss. He piloted the Taiyan arc and reached the thunderstorm layer without incident. He halted above the darkness layer. A strong wind had begun to flow, and the frenetic storm, affected by this strange wind, began to weaken. Specks of light emerged from the darkness. Li Fan used this precious light to search for the monster lurking in the shadows. Unfortunately, he found nothing. Realizing the light was about to vanish, Li Fan hesitated no longer and piloted the Taiyan arc at full speed, heading toward the bottom of the abyssal ruins. However, once again, the great monster emerged. opening its mouth to swallow the ark. Li Fan felt at that moment that his suspicions were correct. That monster possessed a great malice toward mortals. Perhaps its mission was to devour any mortal who reached that place. Li Fan managed to maneuver the ark to escape the monster's maw. He made the ark ascend as high as possible toward the thunderclouds. When Li Fan reached the storm, he noticed the monster had stopped pursuing him. Within the lightning storm, he used the flashes to see what that monster truly was. The great monster had the appearance of an enormous whale. Sharp teeth lined its entire mouth. Its eyes gleamed with extreme malice. Seeing that giant beast made Li Fan grit his teeth. The whale was massive, and the Taiyan ark was extremely small. Yet, every time he passed through that place, the whale managed to find him. Li Fan could try several other methods, for fortunately, he possessed many chances. In the following 15 years, Li Fan tried countless times to force his passage through the darkness layer. But during this time, the interval it took for the giant whale to find him after entering the darkness decreased considerably. Li Fan could only return defeated after a brief struggle with the giant whale. In the 35th year, Li Fan once again returned to the abyss and stood before the darkness layer. Only on the day the white mist dissipates does the giant whale seem to be delayed by something, discovering Li Fan only some time later. With this extra time, perhaps Li Fan could fly to the bottom of the abyssal ruins. This time, Li Fan decided to go all out, at the highest possible speed to cross the darkness before the giant whale could react. An illusory scenario emerged, drawing closer and closer, a light at the end of the tunnel. But the cry of the whale echoed once more. Li Fan saw it was too late again, and used the return of truth to create a new life. Li Fan set aside, selecting any items, and chose advanced progress. This time, however, Li Fan noticed that his psychological age limit had not increased. It seemed he had already reached his limit. He sighed, yet he still had 748 years left to live. In this 8th life, in the 4th year, Li Fan opened Qianhong's tomb again. He obtained the tombstone once more, increasing the time anchor progress by another 25%. In the 5th year, on the day the white mist receded, the charge of the return of truth was near 90%, but nothing less than 100% made a difference to Li Fan. In the 20th year, Li Fan tried once more to pass through the darkness layer and failed. In the 35th year, he faced the whale again, facing defeat in his attempt to cross the darkness. However, these attempts were not completely useless. At the very least, Li Fan's control over the Taiyan ark became even more refined. In the 50th year, Li Fan decided not to force his way through the darkness layer again. He was already old, his reflexes and mental agility had declined. There was no chance of success. Therefore, he chose to meet with his 2 old friends to search for any clues. Once again, Li Fan heard a sentence that made him nostalgic. "Dao Xuanzi, do not force me any further." As before, Li Fan used the pretext of a core formation method to lure the 2 Taoists to the Great Tutor's mansion. After 3 rounds of drinks, Li Fan produced a scroll with a painting of the giant whale. Showing the painting, Li Fan revealed, "My ancestor once said on his deathbed that if I had the chance to escape the Forgotten Land, I wouldn't have to worry about anything. With the protection of our Taiyan sect ark, I should be safe. But in the final layer, a giant whale appears, requiring great attention." Upon seeing the painting, Ko Hong was impressed. "Such a fierce beast in the darkness, how have I never seen it?" Dao Xuanzi, however, seemed to have a reaction to the painting. Recalling stories, Dao Xuanzi commented, "I have only seen records of this in ancient texts. It is said that in ancient times there was a sect called the Beast Tamer sect. The Beast Tamer sect did not have profound cultivation methods, relying only on the arts of taming beasts. They could control the exotic beasts of the heavens and earth to fight for them. Among the famous beasts controlled by this sect was a giant whale." The story made Ko Hong remember something. "Is it not called the rift-opening whale?" Discovering a lead, Li Fan asked hurriedly, "Do you know how to avoid the rift-opening whale?" However, having only read historical tales, neither of them had any clues. In the end, Li Fan realized he would have to rely only on himself. After handing the cultivation method to Dao Xuanzi and dismissing the 2, Li Fan decided to start a new life. In the 9th timeline, Li Fan opened Qianhong's tomb again, hoping to absorb the damaged tombstone fragment. Unfortunately, the return of truth did not react. In the years 20, 35, and 50, he tried repeatedly, but could not cross the darkness layer. In the 65th year, Li Fan was already 85 years old. His life was coming to an end. He was so old that he could not outmaneuver or outrun the giant whale. He did not want to force it, so he gave up on controlling the Taiyan ark and let it travel slowly toward the bottom of the abyssal ruins. The the astral wind layer, the illusory light layer, the inverted layer, the flowing fire layer, the deep ice layer, the storm layer, the darkness layer. It was upon reaching the darkness layer that Li Fan was surprised. He realized that the whale had not appeared yet, and he was already almost at the true bottom of the abyss. The light of the exit was approaching. Li Fan, who had collapsed due to weakness, pulled himself to his knees. He reached out to trigger the ark's maximum speed. The energy made the ark glow and surge forward toward the bottom. At that moment, the giant whale emerged, pursuing the Taiyan ark. When he saw the whale approaching, Li Fan cursed it. "How did it find me?" Then, Li Fan realized the truth. The whale seemed to be blind and ignored objects moving at a constant speed. As long as he maintained the same pace, he could pass through the formation safely. Li Fan slapped his own forehead and began to laugh. "The last shackle that bound me to this forgotten immortal land has been completely broken by me. Ha 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 ha!" The ark managed to escape the whale's bite and broke through the hole in the darkness layer, entering a miraculous open universe. Amidst Li Fan's uncontrolled laughter and the giant whale's roar, the Taiyan ark broke the rift between the two realms and headed directly for the cultivation world. The surrounding environment became blurred. It was as if Li Fan had instantaneously crossed the distance of several worlds. Under immense pressure, several internal injuries appeared in Li Fan, but the pain was worth it. Contemplating the grand formation that separated the immortals, Li Fan's perspective became infinitely elevated. However, at that moment, he witnessed a scene he would never forget. He saw the rift-opening whale, but not just one, hundreds of them, or perhaps hundreds of thousands, swimming in the world of darkness. Those which looked like planets of shadow carved stretches of space out of the void, and the forgotten immortal land from which Li Fan came, from the perspective of the cultivation world where he now stood, became increasingly distant, like a single drop of ink in the middle of a vast ocean. The ark arrived in a new world, crossing a new abyss. It traveled toward a mountain range amidst the clouds where, on the highest peak reaching toward the heavens, sat a city. In his final moments of life, Li Fan smiled despite all his wounds. So this is the cultivation world. Being able to see it before perishing makes this life not in vain. Li Fan's eyes slowly closed, and then he used the return of truth of Huanzhen. Upon starting a new life, Li Fan smiled in his youth. The 9 lives he had lived cost him nearly 500 years, but he had finally managed to touch the threshold of cultivation. Li Fan analyzed his previous plan of choosing to accelerate progress, but after seeing the items he could select, he hesitated. He was shocked to see the tombstone fragment. After some thought, he decided to choose it. This was a good chance to verify a hunch he had. Li Fan's 10th life began. Since he did not choose to accelerate the charge of the return of truth, he had to wait 20 years for it to be completed. By the 3rd year, he had arrived at Qianhong's tomb. He did not choose to use the immortal mortal miasma to enter the tomb. Instead, he used the tombstone fragment. After the fragment was removed from the Huanzhen system, a great change occurred. The tombstone slowly began to disappear, like an ice cube under the scorching sun. The formation generated by the fragment inside Qianhong's tomb clearly became much stronger. As Li Fan had imagined, mythical objects of heaven and earth possessed unique characteristics. 2 identical objects should not exist in the same world. Yet, with the Huanzhen ability, Li Fan had created a copy. The consequence of the 2 objects merging was that they became one. Afterward, Li Fan ordered his subordinates to use the miasma to enter the tomb. It took considerable effort to do this slowly. Upon entering the tomb, Li Fan noticed the appearance of the tombstone hadn't changed much. It just looked slightly less damaged. When attempting to absorb the energy from the tombstone, Li Fan realized the Huanzhen system still could not do so. Thus, Li Fan stored the strengthened tombstone in the Taiyan ark as part of his belongings for future travels in the cultivation world. In the 20th year, the Huanzhen system was about to finish its charge. Li Fan investigated and ruthlessly purged a group of corrupt officials and powerful landowners, confiscating all the gold, silver, and jewels their families had accumulated over generations. Since he needed to deal with mortals upon reaching the cultivation world, Li Fan wanted the maximum amount of gold, silver, and precious items in advance. Besides money, Li Fan also wanted food. Since grain was the foundation of the nation, the amount Li Fan requested was seen as excessive by the officials. They tried to send memorials in opposition, but Li Fan did not even listen to them. In front of all the civilians and military officials, he expanded the Taiyan boat to its maximum size, suspending it in mid-air above the imperial palace. Upon seeing this, the common people knelt and prostrated themselves. And when the civil and military officials of the court witnessed such immortal methods, they completely changed their attitude. They proactively and diligently helped Li Fan prepare the grain. With the proactive help of the officials, as well as the emergence of a group of merchants seeking favors, the Taiyan boat was finally fully loaded. All preparations were made. Li Fan no longer had any ties to the mortal world. Piloting the Taiyan Ark, he once again descended from the heavens toward the abyss of ruin. With a relaxed mind, he left the boat on autopilot at a constant speed. The journey lasted only a few hours, but it felt longer than Li Fan's 500 years of life. The soul-tearing sensation of crossing between two worlds invaded him, but this time, he gradually adapted to it. After a long wait, Li Fan finally crossed the Great Immortal Separating Formation and reached the cultivation world. However, after looking at the scenery around him, he was slightly perplexed. Confused to see a vast sea, Li Fan wondered what was happening and why he had emerged in a different place. Looking at the map Ko Hong had made, he found no sea. Since he could only take one step at a time, he tried to at least find an uninhabited place where he could stop before the boat's spirit stones ran out. Li Fan chose a direction and piloted the Ark, flying while searching for cities on the horizon. The sea seemed vast and boundless. Li Fan flew for 7 days and 7 nights without seeing any sign of human habitation. After another 10 days, the speed of the Taihang Ark began to decrease. It was about to run out of energy, leaving Li Fan desperate, but the shadow of a boat finally appeared on the sea in the distance. With the aid of a telescope, Li Fan saw something that left him speechless. It was a boat, but a boat that had just been shipwrecked. It appeared to have been attacked, as there was a large hole in the bow, and about 2/3 of it was already submerged. In the water surrounding the boat, dozens of people were struggling to hold on to debris. They were the boat's crew. A shipwrecked man shouted to those around him, "Do not be afraid. I have already sent a signal to the Immortal Master. He will arrive to save us soon." Upon hearing the title, Immortal Master, Li Fan's attention was caught. His heart skipped a beat. Stopping his boat, Li Fan dived into the water and silently swam submerged toward the group. Li Fan quietly joined the crowd, also pretending to be at his last gasp, barely surviving. Like the others, he cried out, "Immortal Master, save me!" Suddenly, a hazy voice emerged from the sky. Such a noise! Hearing the man's voice, Li Fan noticed that he seemed to have used some magical art. His clothes and face were surrounded by a layer of mist, making it impossible to see him clearly. The moment the man appeared, the surroundings immediately fell silent. Li Fan also discovered he could not make any sound. The man with the clouded face moved his hand and, pointing 2 fingers upward, used his power. The boat, which was almost completely submerged, emerged from the water toward the sky. In a few seconds, the boat was completely out of the water, above the shipwrecked people. Furthermore, with a simple wave of his hand, the hole in the boat was quickly repaired, and the people in the water were thrown back into the boat. In the sky, the Immortal questioned, "Who sent me the signal?" A person immediately knelt, introducing himself. It was Humble Me, Su Changyu. With a trembling voice, the Immortal reminded him, "You know the rules, don't you? After we arrive at the location, this has nothing to do with me. I never saw you, and you never saw me. Understood?" Su Changyu didn't even lift his head and nodded. "This humble one understands." Nodding in agreement, the Immortal extended his hand, and in the next moment, the large boat began to move once more across the surface. Li Fan did not know what magical art had been used, but the speed of the boat was remarkable. The Immortal Master sat at the bow of the ship and said no more words. Everyone on the ship also remained in a strange silence. More than half a day passed, and after night fell, a faint, intermittent light finally became visible in the distance. They arrived at a prosperous-looking island. Hundreds of large ships were docked at the port, revealing a magnificent sight. However, the boat Li Fan was on did not head toward the port. Instead, it went around the island and entered a sparsely populated area until it reached a cave. After navigating through the darkness for some time, the boat finally stopped. Once the boat stabilized, several hooded men approached to meet it. The men in black robes acted as if they hadn't even seen the Immortal Master, simply helping everyone disembark. They then led everyone to a spacious hall. One of the men, illuminated by the moonlight, warned, "You will rest here tonight. There is plenty of food in the hall. You may have it if you wish. Tomorrow someone will come to receive you and record your identities." A young man with a white robe and gold shoulder pads was the first to sigh when the men in black left the place. "Ah, what bad luck. We actually encountered a sea monster. There were at least 100 of us when we set out, but now there are less than half." Next to him and Su Changyu, another participant also sighed. "I don't know what my father was thinking instead of sending me to the great world to cultivate. If you ask me, I'll tell you. How can cultivation be as fun as listening to music?" The young man with the shoulder pads agreed. "Exactly. In my hometown, I was the Prince of Zhenan. What wealth and glories could I not enjoy? What is so good about this place forgotten by the heavens?" Su Changyu interrupted them. "What's the point in saying that now? Didn't your parents pay a great price to send you here?" Su Changyu rebuked them bluntly. "Instead of complaining, cultivate patiently. If you actually manage to become immortal masters, not only will you find long life, but you will also have the chance to return to your homelands and bring your families here." While the three discussed, Li Fan listened. He was afraid that everyone was like them, mortals exiled to the abandoned immortal land. What was strange to Li Fan was that where these people came from, the existence of the cultivation world did not seem to be a secret. While he was immersed in thought, one of the three approached and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Brother, I don't think I saw you before. May I ask what official position you held in Dali? Or perhaps you are a wealthy merchant from one of the provinces." When he felt the hand on his shoulder, Li Fan turned and slapped it away. He glared at the youth with a terrifying gaze that sent the boy scurrying away. "Farewell!" Terrified, the youth felt that the man who had stared him down had held a high-ranking position for years. He was no simple person. The next day at dawn, a man met all those who had traveled. "In a moment, I will take you to register. Once you do, you will officially be members of Liuli Island." The man with a hairbun and a green robe explained, "Remember, do not say anything you shouldn't say, otherwise your safety cannot be guaranteed." Li Fan remained silent, listening to the instructor's words. "You are residents of Western Dayu Island. Your island was destroyed by a storm, and that is why you are seeking refuge here. If anyone asks, that is what you will say." Following the middle-aged man's instructions, everyone put on tattered clothes. The man guided them while they were watched by 4 or 5 hooded men. The group crossed a secret passage, leaving the cave and heading to the surface. The group of several dozen people was not small, but most of the island's residents merely gave them quick glances, as they were already used to it. After walking through the city's residential neighborhood for an indefinite time, the groups finally arrived in front of a mansion. After the servant at the gate announced the group's arrival, he returned to lead them through a side door into a large hall. 2 or 3 other groups, totaling more than 100 people, were already gathered, and soon it was the turn of Li Fan's group. The middle-aged man led them and greeted a man. "Commissioner Zhao." Commissioner Zhao, an old man with long gray hair and a beard, walked around the group asking, "Are all of these refugees who want to register?" The man remained quiet, and with a red-eyed look, Commissioner Zhao commented, "Sun Jiang, these refugees are all wealthy or noble." Sun Jiang agreed, revealing, they were all from rich families on Dayu Island. At that moment, Sun Jiang placed his hand in the inner pocket of his robe. He placed a shiny gold stone in Commissioner Zhao's hand while spinning a tale. Unfortunately, without the protection of an immortal master, a disaster occurred, and all the wealth and glory they had burst like a bubble in the sea. They could only travel thousands of miles to seek refuge on our Liuli Island. Commissioner Zhao closed his hand and continued the story Sun Jiang had created. The storm happened a few days ago, and even our Liuli Island was affected. The western islands suffered even greater losses. It is said that over 200 islands were razed, and countless mortals perished at sea. Stowing the bribe, the commissioner concluded, "Fortunately, the immortal masters were merciful and ordered the rescue of the refugees. It is good that your Tianbao Lao is so dedicated." The commissioner told Sun Jiang to rest easy, as he would communicate this truth to the island lord, and ordered him to wait for his share of the reward. After that, Commissioner Zhao began the registration process for everyone. Not long after, it was Li Fan's turn. Li Fan and Commissioner Zhao stared at each other for some time in silence. The commissioner then asked the bearded man's name, and Li Fan answered honestly. Writing Li Fan's name on a card, the commissioner instructed him to prick his finger and drop a bead of blood to complete the identification. Li Fan did so. The commissioner then instructed him to keep the spiritual talisman safe. "From now on, this will be proof of your identity. You must present it for all matters on the island, whether large or small, as well as for work, collecting grain, and during inspections." Sun Jiang watched Commissioner Zhao and was confused, wondering why he was being so cordial to this Li Fan, explaining so much to him. The household registrations were distributed very efficiently, and Li Fan's entire group received their residence permits for Liuli. They left that place and did not return to the cave. Instead, Sun Jiang led them to the courtyard of a residence. With several hooded men behind him, Sun Jiang turned to Su Changyu. "Now that the registrations are in hand, we can sign the contract, right?" Su Changyu took a paper from his inner pocket and, biting his finger, signed his name. Burning the paper with energy, he confirmed, "These are the so-called 3 contracts to be finalized. In the future, once we are completely settled, I will sign the final contract as promised." Sun Jiang snorted, scratching his forehead. Dealing with people from the Broken Realm really is a massive headache. If it weren't for the immortal master's taste, our Tian Baolu would never participate in business that yields no profit. Moving to another topic, Sun Jiang warned that all residents of Liuli Island could choose a place to live using their household registration spiritual talismans. Furthermore, in the first year of registration, they would receive a certain amount of grain for free every month. Probing, Su Changyu asked what they needed to do if they wished to cultivate. Sun Jiang answered the question. "You mortals who returned from the land of exile have a concentration of miasma in your bodies much higher than ordinary people. If you wish to cultivate, you must first dissipate this miasma." Li Fan watched Su Changyu continue to ask questions. He wanted to know how they could remove the miasma from their bodies. Sun Jiang explained that there were several methods. The first was the island's purifying pool. Bathing in the spiritual pool for a day and a night can completely remove the miasma miasma from your bodies. Rubbing his chin, Sunjang revealed the downside. Unfortunately, the materials needed to open the spiritual pool area are expensive. Although our Liuli Island is prosperous, we can only open it once every 3 years. Thinking for a moment, Sunjang remembered it had been opened the previous year, which meant they would have to wait 2 more years. Hearing that the number of slots was limited and competition was fierce, Su Changyu frowned. Even Sunjang didn't believe that outsiders without a foundation could compete with the islanders. Since that method seemed difficult, Su Changyu asked if there were others. Sunjang explained the second method, cultivating the deep yellow heart, purification incantation, as well as making use of special medicines. It was possible to gradually change one's constitution over time and eventually free oneself from the miasma. Although the method was time-consuming, about 5 or 6 years, Sunjang guaranteed it was advantageous due to its stability. It also didn't require a special price. Both the skill and the necessary elixirs could even be bought at the island's sea pharmacies. Hearing that the time spent would be at least 5 years, Su Changyu clenched his hands until his veins popped. Are there perhaps any other methods? With a sharp look, Sunjang revealed, the last method is to become a test subject. Su Changyu was left in shock by Sunjang's words. The man even further revealed, some immortal masters are quite interested in the miasma within the bodies of mortals. Each year, volunteers are selected from the island's mortals to serve as test subjects. The immortal masters use special methods to extract the miasma from the test subjects' bodies for research. It takes only a few months for all the miasma to be drained. Despite the process being faster than other methods, Sunjang warned, the process is extremely painful. Frequently, the vast majority of test subjects cannot endure until the miasma has been fully extracted, and they go insane. With a grim expression, Su Changyu tried to ask if there were other methods. Sunjang revealed that direct descendants of immortal masters could use treasures to reconstruct their bodies, even improving their aptitude for cultivation. However, such methods were beyond imagination, as not even the island lord received such treatment. Sunjang had to leave Su Changyu frustrated, as that was all he knew. Despite the harsh words, Sunjang acknowledged them. I know that after returning from the exiled land, after enduring countless hardships, you possess a heart that seeks the Tao. Who among us was not like that at the beginning? Unfortunately, this is a difficult path. Even after removing the miasma from your bodies, there is the possibility of not even being able to feel spiritual energy. Do not go looking for trouble. There is nothing wrong with being a mortal. Sunjang's words tried to soothe the newcomers, but Su Changyu's gaze remained dark due to the lack of hope. Sunjang gave one last piece of advice before leaving. Enjoy life. Let yourselves be carried away by passions. Live in the moment. The outcome was not what Su Changyu had expected, and frustration took hold of his being. After Sunjang left, the group dispersed. Li Fan asked around and found a place to claim free housing. He showed his talisman and was then taken by a guide to a residential area in the northern part of Liuli Island. Countless houses were densely packed there, most with only one room, but fortunately, they all had small courtyards enclosed by walls, so they didn't seem too precarious. After handing him the key, the guide left. Li Fan would stay in the 7th house of the 6th Street. The room was quite simple, with only a bed, a table, and chairs. As he lay down, Li Fan felt relieved, as he had at least established himself without much trouble. This was all thanks to the person from the Broken Realm. Analyzing the group he had met, Li Fan believed that, besides Su Changyu, everyone else was mediocre, with no intention of walking the Tao. Li Fan's primary goal now was to remove the miasma from his body. Although the spots for the body-purifying spiritual pool were precious, he believed he could obtain one of them with the countless treasures he carried in the Taiyan Ark. The only drawback was that the Ark was too conspicuous. He couldn't show his wealth easily. Lacking a foundation, suddenly revealing such riches would draw unwanted attention. While Li Fan was thinking about what to do, someone knocked on his door. He asked, "Who is there?" A man's voice emerged. "It's me!" Li Fan stood up, drawing a dagger from the Taiyan Ark and approaching the door. Seeing who was outside, Li Fan found the man who had touched his shoulder earlier. The man forced his way in, questioning, "You aren't one of us from the Broken Realm, right?" He frowned, interrogating Li Fan. "Who are you, and what is your purpose sneaking onto Liuli Island?" The protagonist frowned, returning the question, "How do you know I'm not from the Broken Realm?" The young man revealed he remembered when Li Fan emerged from the water after they were shipwrecked. "At first I thought it was just an illusion, but thinking carefully I realized you weren't in our group when we left the Broken Realm." The youth pointed at Li Fan, revealing what he knew. Even with a dark gaze, Li Fan praised him. "It seems you are quite astute." The The words sounded like a compliment to the man, who boasted, "Of course. Besides me, none of those idiots noticed that a stranger appeared." Questioning if he was sure no one else saw him, Li Fan gripped the dagger firmly. The man stood with his back to him, arms crossed. "Of course not. How could those idiots compare to this young master?" As soon as he heard the confirmation he expected, Li Fan attacked. The dagger pierced the target, who fell to the ground with his heavy body. Li Fan quickly stowed the dagger, mocking, "Truly an idiot." Li Fan observed the body of the astute youth, who upon discovering his false identity, had tried to threaten him. Holding the Taiyan arc, Li Fan absorbed the body so it would never be found again. While washing the floor, he couldn't believe the young man hadn't stopped to think before acting. People from everywhere used false registrations claiming to be refugees. Having just arrived, they were already acting as if they were natives. From the immortal master, whose face could not be seen, to Sun Jiang, everyone acted cautiously, fearful that they might be discovered. This meant they needed to keep their status as mortals from exiled lands a secret, or they could be investigated. Li Fan believed that even if they investigated the disappearance of the chubby youth and discovered he had visited him, now that there wasn't even a body, they could do nothing against him. Just as Li Fan expected, a few days passed, and besides Su Changyu visiting him to ask a simple question, the disappearance of the youth who discovered him drew no other attention. During the following days, he asked about various matters on the island while planning how to reasonably use the treasures of the Taiyan Arc. Gradually, he reached a general understanding of the situation on Liuli Island. This sea region is called the Kongyun Sea. The Kongyun Sea is vast and boundless, with tens of thousands of islands scattered across it. Liuli Island is located in the south-central part of the Kongyun Sea and is of medium size. It was named Liuli Island because the surrounding waters are abundant in a type of savory and fleshy fish called the Liuli fish. Liuli fish are very popular among mortals, and certain elixirs refined by immortal masters also use the Liuli pearls that occasionally form within their bodies. Therefore, the immortal master presiding over Liuli Island must collect a certain number of Liuli pearls every year. Going out to sea to catch Liuli fish is the most popular job. One must deliver only 70% of the catch, and the remaining 30% can be kept for personal sale. Unfortunately, going out to sea requires a large investment, and Liuli fish schools are unpredictable. During times of scarcity, a special spiritual bait from the island is required. The spiritual bait is distributed only by the Liuli mansion when someone sets out for sea and is collected upon return. Private fishing is not allowed. If someone is caught, the punishment is immediate execution. Therefore, fishing for Liuli fish can only be done with permission from the Liuli mansion. A few days ago, a fleet that went out to sea not only returned with a large quantity of Liuli fish, but also found a shipwreck. This shipwreck was carrying more than a dozen chests of gold, silver, and jewels. This time, the fleet was truly lucky. As for the items salvaged from the wreck, the rules are the same as for the Liuli fish. You can keep 30%, and the remaining 70% must be handed over to the authorities. When this fleet returned to the port, half the island went into an uproar. Even the island's financial supervisor, Lord Qian, had gone to inspect it. Personally, Li Fan had a thought. As long as I can go out to sea alone, I can launder the treasures from the trade arc through a fake shipwreck. The only difficulty is how to obtain authorization to go out to sea alone. There are many people on the island wanting to join the fleet, but after some casual investigations, Li Fan discovered the key point. The Lord of Liuli Island has 3 helpers: Commissioner Zhao, responsible for personnel, Commissioner Qian, responsible for finances, and Commissioner Zhou, responsible for security. The vast majority of spots for the fleet's maritime voyages are in the hands of Steward Qian. Steward Zhao and Steward Zhou have always wanted to get involved, but Steward Qian has maintained tight control, allocating only 1 or 2 fleets to them. Li Fan remembered that on the day of registration, Commissioner Zhao's attitude was different toward him compared to the others. Li Fan did not know the reason, so he planned to visit Commissioner Zhao to find out. Commissioner Zhao was not someone Li Fan could see just because he wanted to. Therefore, Li Fan decided to contact Sun Jiang at the Heavenly Treasure Tower, a large red pavilion strictly guarded. However, even there he was rejected. The guard mocked him. "What kind of status do you think Elder Sun holds? He is not someone you can see just because you want to. Leave immediately." Since the Heavenly Treasure Tower was open for business, Li Fan did not believe in the logic of driving people away. The men in black had made the decision without even asking, as if they already knew who Li Fan was. This made Li Fan imagine that something might have happened to the people from the Broken Realm, causing Sun Jiang to become hostile and ignore him. After some research, Li Fan discovered what had happened. It turns out that to rid himself of the miasma in his body as quickly as possible, Su Chengyu decided to become a test subject. Before leaving, Su Chengyu signed the remaining contract. The young man, whom Li Fan had seen wearing gold shoulder pads at the beginning, was now wearing simple clothes and sighed as he told what had happened. The 3 contracts are now complete, and the document has completely dissipated. There is nothing more between us from the Broken Realm and Tianbao Lu. Li Fan understood why Sun Jiang's group had suddenly become hostile and was ignoring them. He hadn't expected Su Chengyu to be so determined. Irritated, the young man who knew Su Chengyu raged. I warned him not to be in such a hurry, but why would he listen to me, right? Melancholic, the youth revealed why Su Chengyu was so desperate. He was trying to save his little sister who suffered from a terminal illness. While the young man acted with sadness, Li Fan began to think about the matter. Although Sun Jiang chose to avoid him, he would not give up so easily. Judging by how he couldn't help but confront Su Chengyu on the first day, it meant Sun Jiang was at least not a bad person. Li Fan believed he only didn't want to meet him because he didn't want to be involved with mortals from the abandoned lands. Since he didn't want to deal with strangers, but rather with people he knew at least a little, Li Fan returned to the front of the Heavenly Treasure Tower once more. Immediately upon seeing him, a hooded guard shouted, "You brat, you're back again?" Li Fan returned the ignorance with righteous words. "I have come to do business with your Heavenly Treasure Tower. You want to throw me out without even talking. Is this how your Heavenly Treasure Tower treats guests?" The guards were shocked, and whispers began to spread among the people who had heard Li Fan. After retreating to ask for instructions, the man dressed in black took Li Fan to the inner area. After sitting in a guest room, a maid served Li Fan a cup of tea. As soon as he drank the tea, Li Fan praised it with a smile. Hearing the praise, Sun Jiang approached, revealing the identity of the tea. The pale dragon of Dayu grows in underwater volcanic craters around the island of Dayu. There are only about a dozen plants. Now, with the destruction of Dayu Island, this pale dragon of Dayu has temporarily become a unique rarity. Upon hearing him, Li Fan thanked him. "Then I shall delight in your light, elder son." Sun Jiang got straight to the point as he approached. "The migration matters are over. There should be no more business between you and me. Why have you appeared again?" The protagonist replied to Sun Jiang by revealing there was a misunderstanding. "I am truly here to discuss a business deal." The statement seemed like a joke to Sun Jiang. "Business? You?" Li Fan stared at Sun Jiang, showing he was serious in his words. The man pulled up a chair to join Li Fan over tea and asked what business he wanted to talk about. The protagonist was direct. "I wonder if the Heavenly Treasure Tower is interested in a spot for the maritime fleet." The question made Sun Jiang ponder. Every time the fleet goes to sea, not to mention the treasures that can be recovered, just the liuli fish and other marine delicacies are enough to make a fortune. If I said we weren't interested, it would be a lie. Sun Jiang, however, knew the quota was controlled by Commissioner Chen. Without mentioning the tower, even Commissioner Zhao only received 1 or 2 spots. This made him question, "You are a newcomer. What skills do you have to dare interest yourself in this?" Li Fan was blunt. "If you let me see Commissioner Zhao, I have a way to persuade him." Sun Jiang narrowed his brow upon hearing him, and the two stared each other down momentarily. At that moment, a woman's voice cut through the conversation. "Let him see Commissioner Zhao. That is not something difficult. If he fails, just throw him to the fish." Wearing a golden dress with long white sleeves, the curvaceous woman who showed only her eyes, thanks to a veil over her mouth, approached. Sun Jiang immediately stood up and bowed slightly. "Greetings, shopkeeper." With legs crossed, the woman referred to as the shopkeeper took Sun Jiang's place, with him by her side. Seeing her take over the conversation, Li Fan greeted her, thanking her for the opportunity. Resting her face on a hand with her elbow on the table, the shopkeeper observed Li Fan. "You seem confident. It doesn't look like you're bragging." The protagonist made a commitment. "This humble man always keeps his promises. My word is my bond." This made the woman snort lightly. "If you truly succeed, my Heavenly Treasure Tower will want to extract corresponding benefits." Li Fan then cited the island's division rules. 30% should belong to me, but I don't want even 1% of that share. Half will go to Commissioner Zhao, and half will go to your Heavenly Treasure Tower. The shopkeeper was confused and voiced what seemed strange. "In that case, going to such lengths, what is it that you desire?" The protagonist was direct, revealing he only wanted to enter the quota for the body-purifying spiritual pool that opened every 3 years. His wish surprised both Sun Jiang and the shopkeeper. She tried to restrain herself, but then burst into loud laughter, to the point of needing to hold her stomach. "Please, uncle, you're already at this age and you still want to learn to cultivate immortality?" The only thing that could be heard in the whole room was the shopkeeper's laughter as she let herself go. After several minutes of laughing, she ran out of breath and came to a stop. Li Fan never once glance changed his serious expression and affirmed, "If it is in pursuit of eternal life, I will have no regrets even if I meet my end." The words, filled with the man's deep sentiments, surprised the shopkeeper. She bit her lips slightly and stated with a steady gaze, "Fine, I agree to it." After the meeting, the shopkeeper instructed Li Fan, "Wait until the date I have set. I will send someone to notify you." Hearing the confirmation, Li Fan took his leave. Before going, he passed his address to her. "I live in house number 7 of the 6th lane outside the city. You can find me there." And after Li Fan left, Sun Jiang, still harboring numerous doubts, sought to resolve them with the shopkeeper regarding the spot in the spiritual pool. Hearing this, the shopkeeper revealed, "Although the competition for spots in the body-purifying spiritual pool is fierce every year, my heavenly treasure tower is not a place without the strength to compete. If he can truly secure a maritime fleet, then in just 5 years, the benefits he brings will be enough to cover the cost of the spot." The shopkeeper smiled enchantingly behind her veil, for to her, the deal she had made would only yield victories. However, her smile suddenly vanished, replaced by a wary look as she commented, "That man's eyes were terrifying." On the way back, Li Fan stopped at the pharmacy and bought the book Deep Yellow Heart, Purification Incantation, and the corresponding medicinal herbs. Even if everything went well, he knew it would be 2 years before the spiritual pool opened. He might as well try to cultivate first to see the effects. Li Fan wondered if he possibly possessed an incredible natural talent for purging the miasma from his body within those 2 years. For the next few days, Li Fan remained in cultivation, waiting for the day he would meet Commissioner Zhao. However, who would have imagined that even before meeting Commissioner Zhao, he would hear shocking news? Su Changyu had been turned into a pool of flesh. When Su Changyu's body was sent back, the result shocked everyone. What he had become didn't even look human. The people from the Broken Realm were newcomers and couldn't even gather enough money for a decent tomb. They originally planned to burn the remains at sea, but Li Fan couldn't just stand by and watch. Therefore, he put up some money so that Su Changyu could rest in peace in the earth. Xiao Heng, the heir to the Prince of Jinan from the Broken Realm, was the one who felt the loss of Su Changyu the most. He cried miserably. Li Fan didn't feel much in particular, only a slight sigh. This Su Changyu behaved decently and had a firm will. Although he wasn't a genius seen only once a century, he was definitely not mediocre. Among the group from the Broken Realm, Li Fan originally imagined Su Changyu was the one with the best chance of making a name for himself. Yet, such a person couldn't even survive the prerequisite of cultivation, the purification of miasma, and perished in silence. It showed just how difficult the path to immortality was. In the subsequent process of cultivating the Deep Yellow Heart, Purification Incantation, Li Fan's understanding of the text's words began to deepen. The facts proved that Li Fan was also not an unparalleled genius. For nearly a month, Li Fan lived in seclusion, practicing this heart-purifying practice daily. Generally, even those with average aptitude would notice obvious effects, such as improved spirits and quicker reasoning, after half a month of practice. But a month passed, and surprisingly, Li Fan felt no change. Li Fan, however, did not get anxious. He simply treated it as a mandatory daily cultivation mission. Another month passed, and finally, someone from the Heavenly Treasure Tower arrived at his door. According to the messenger, Li Fan was to meet Commissioner Zhao in the garden belonging to the Heavenly Treasure Tower. Meeting with Commissioner Zhao, Li Fan greeted him. "Long time no see, Commissioner Zhao." Without turning to look at him, the commissioner revealed, "I heard from the people at the Heavenly Treasure Tower that you want a spot in the maritime fleet. Your appetite is large. What kind of backing do you have?" Smiling, Li Fan began to speak. "A fleet that goes to sea seeks only profit. I wonder, Commissioner Zhao, how do you think the profit from fishing liuli fish compares to recovering treasures directly from shipwrecks at the bottom of the ocean?" He teased the commissioner by speaking of valuable items. Recovering a treasure is worth several regular fishing trips, but how to find something so good every time? Having been in the village for over 12 years, Commissioner Zhao searched his memory and recalled there had only been a few occasions with significant harvests. Li Fan, with a steady gaze, vowed to Commissioner Zhao, "If I am to command a fleet, I can guarantee that every time we go to sea, we will return with a certain amount of treasures." The commissioner's eyes flashed with a red light, due to surprise and curiosity to know if Li Fan was telling the truth. After a second of silence, he stroked his long beard pensively, for unexpectedly, the man in front of him had not lied. Attracted by the commissioner's curiosity, the protagonist tried even harder to make him believe in him. "I truly am not boasting, but I wonder, how do you know this, Commissioner Zhao?" Continuing to stroke his long beard, Commissioner Zhao revealed a bit of his history. "I was born with a pair of unique eyes that can recognize talents and distinguish truth from lies. At the moment you spoke just now, I saw a soft white light emitted from your body, proving your words were true and that you harbored no foul intentions." Li Fan was truly surprised to hear there was such a unique art. He then remembered something from a few months ago and mentioned, "On the day of registration, Commissioner Zhao, your attitude toward me seemed slightly different from those toward the others. Did you see something different back then?" Recalling the day he first met and analyzed Li Fan, Commissioner Zhao revealed, "I only saw that you were extremely wealthy and that you had a bit of blood on your hands. Obviously, you were no ordinary person. That is why I was a bit more polite to you, forming good karma." Discovering a bit more about Commissioner Zhao's ability, Li Fan asked if on the registration day he had discovered that Sun Jiang from the Heavenly Treasure Tower was not telling the truth. With eyes closed and hands behind his back, Commissioner Zhao replied ethereally, "So, what if it is true or false? With an immortal master presiding over the island, we are not afraid of trouble. As long as you mind your own business, nothing will happen to you." Steward Zhao revealed that gathering refugees was also the immortal master's order. "If Sun Jiang can bring even more refugees to my Luli Island, how could I make things difficult for him?" Understanding the matter, Li Fan returned to the main topic. "Since Commissioner Zhao can tell that I am not speaking falsely, could you consider the matter of the spot in maritime navigation?" The commissioner sat on a stool and answered honestly, "You are a newcomer with no foundation. If I hand a spot in the fleet to you, it will certainly cause dissatisfaction." Thinking of a solution, Commissioner Zhao said, "If you truly can salvage treasures every time you go to sea, then in just a few trips, the crew will certainly be convinced by you. Thus, you will have justification to take a fleet." Upon hearing the idea, Li Fan joined his hands in agreement. Commissioner Zhao is thorough in his reasoning. Minutes later, the shopkeeper was in shock upon hearing the news. "What? He convinced Commissioner Zhao so easily?" Sun Jiang confirmed the information, which left the shopkeeper pensive. Could it be that Uncle wasn't just boasting, and he really has the confidence to secure a fleet? Sun Jiang was truly curious to know what backing Li Fan possessed. After thinking for a moment, the shopkeeper gave an order to Sun Jiang. "Send him the deed to that vacant courtyard on East Street in the city." Sun Jiang was shocked to hear her and tried to convince her otherwise. "Shopkeeper, we spent a fortune to acquire that courtyard, preparing to use it to bribe Commissioner Chen. How can we just let him have it so cheaply? Even if we are going to give it to him, we should wait until he helps us secure a maritime fleet first." Crossing her arms, the shopkeeper reinforced her order. "Just go if I am telling you to go. If we truly wait until such a time, a mere courtyard would not be enough to make friends with him." Sun Jiang sent a messenger to deliver the land deed to Li Fan. The protagonist naturally did not refuse, and since he traveled light, he moved in immediately. Compared to the outskirts, the courtyard was vastly superior, much more than just a little bit better. Li Fan then politely turned down the few maids sent by the Heavenly Treasure Tower. He began to wait for the next fleet to set sail. Originally, Li Fan thought it wouldn't take long, but an unforeseen event occurred, pushing the date into an indefinite future. A windstorm arrived, uprooting trees and tearing off roofs. The storm battered Liuli Island, sending everyone fleeing for their lives. Li Fan stayed inside his new home until he felt something strange. He rushed outside and saw a massive barrier rising above the island, with runes seemingly floating in the sky. Enormous typhoons surrounded the island, creating terrifying giant waves, but they could no longer enter the island or the dome of energy formed above it. As the islanders gazed at the barrier blocking the storm, an immortal voice echoed across the heavens. "The island's maximum security formation has been activated. There is no cause for panic. Stay in your homes. Do not go out." Immediately, the people fell to their knees, revering the immortal master for showing mercy on their lives. From his courtyard, Li Fan looked at the sky. The runic characters forming the great protective barrier were profound and mysterious. The howling of the storm had been completely silenced by the shield of light. Outside was a violent tempest, while inside everything remained tranquil. This made Li Fan wonder, is this the power of the immortals? Just as he thought everything would be fine, Li Fan was struck with surprise. From the sky, a massive storm of lightning began to fall. A bolt as large as the island itself struck the protective barrier, shaking the very earth. Feeling the celestial thunder, Li Fan collapsed. The shockwave of the collision possessed enough power to make his knees buckle. Looking up, he saw many more celestial bolts approaching, already striking the nearby ocean. With every strike on the barrier, Li Fan gritted his teeth. Will this life of mine end here? Fortunately, the great protective formation proved to be more reliable than Li Fan had imagined. After an unfathomable amount of time, the waves finally calmed. The storm that had arrived so suddenly dissipated slowly. Amidst the wind and rain, it was hard to tell day from night. Li Fan felt at least 2 or 3 days had passed before the storm fully ceased. He heard from the residents that this storm was of a relatively small scale. 15 years ago, a much more severe tempest had attacked. At that time, the barrier failed to stop it completely. After that storm, Luli Island had been reduced to only a third of its original size. In the 12 years following that disaster, the island had welcomed refugees from everywhere and only then slowly recovered its vitality. Watching the clouds disappear to reveal the blue sky, Li Fan acknowledged the power of heaven and earth. A few days later, all residents received instructions. Every family was required to inspect whether the Great Formation had suffered any damage. The method was simple. The Liuli mansion distributed a spiritual talisman to be hung in the house for a few days and nights. One had to observe if any red light emerged. The Immortal Master stated, "The island's protection formation has 367,000 nodes. We must ensure there are no abnormalities in any of them." Under the Immortal Master's will, and considering their own safety, everything on the island was paused to prioritize the formation's maintenance. Everyone, from a newcomer like Li Fan to the shopkeeper of the Heavenly Treasure Tower, was included. In the past, the Immortal Master would coordinate the maintenance work himself, but this time, it was said that the spiritual stones keeping the landmass functioning were nearly exhausted, so the Immortal Master returned to Wangxian Island to retrieve more. The self-inspection process counted 360 flashes of the spiritual talisman as a small cycle, and 360 small cycles as a large cycle. As long as no red light appeared within a large cycle, the landmass was considered unharmed. Upon learning this, Li Fan concluded that while the formation was massive, it was also incredibly complex. He imagined how difficult it must have been to create. 5 days later, the result that made everyone sigh in relief arrived. The formation was undamaged. With the Immortal Master's return, the residents' minds were at ease. Life on Liuli Island gradually returned to normal. In the following months, refugees from other islands arrived from time to time. These survivors were a minority. The vast majority of people on their respective islands had not survived the storm. The Kongyun Sea region was vast, with an unknown number of islands. Only islands with special resources would have an Immortal Master presiding over them. Li Fan did not remain idle. He persisted in cultivating the Deep Yellow Heart, purification incantation, and finally saw results. Both his physiological and psychological age limits increased again. Though the margin was small, it made him feel energized. Another month passed, and finally, Li Fan received news from Commissioner Zhao. The storm in the Kongyun Sea had completely vanished, and the departure of the next maritime fleet was imminent. 3 days later, enormous vessels docked at the Liuli Island pier. Boarding the ship indicated by Commissioner Zhao, Li Fan heard men talking, complaining about the island lord's new agenda. The fleet with the smallest harvest this trip will be disqualified, and their future sailing rights cancelled. How can this be good? Sighing, one man replied, "Don't even mention it. Wasn't this all caused by the storm? I heard people saying the protection formation of Coral Island to the south was damaged, and the whole island sank. Apparently, the supplies Coral Island was supposed to send are now being demanded from our Liuli Island." Seeing they would have to pay much more, the group continued to grumble. That was when a shirtless, muscular man emerged to end the confusion. "Look at you cowards! Why don't you look on the bright side?" Zhang Haobo crossed his arms to challenge them. "Doesn't first place have a reward? The share the winning team receives will increase from 30 to 50%. Hearing their leader's words, the crew told him to stop dreaming. "You know our fishing skills. Last time we barely met the quota." Many believed this would be their last time sailing. However, the captain reassured them, "Don't worry, there is a very capable person on the boat this time. I guarantee everyone will return with full pockets." Unexpectedly, the man pointed right at Li Fan. Upon seeing the pale man, who looked as though he had never spent a day at sea, the fishermen were filled with confusion. This irritated Zhang Haobo, who bellowed, "Do you not recognize a noble? This is the great specialist invited by Commissioner Zhao. He will be guiding our ship shortly. All of you must be more polite." Immediately, a revolt broke out. "Chief, you've been the captain for years. How can you give up like this?" Many disagreed with Zhang Haobo, who merely smiled. The group's anger was so intense that they even contemplated tossing Li Fan into the sea and pretending it was an accident. As things reached a breaking point, Zhang Haobo stopped everyone. "Calm down, everyone, calm down. Although I know you all recognize me, the Kangyuan ship belongs to Commissioner Zhao, after all. We are all selling our lives for him." Faced with their leader's assertion that they had to accept the personnel changes ordered by the commissioner, everyone glared at Li Fan with eyes bloodshot from hatred. Seeing the turmoil brewing, Li Fan sneered internally and shouted, "Gentlemen, do you not trust me? Do you think Commissioner Zhao is blind? Since I have already promised the commissioner that I can find treasures every time we go to sea, I certainly won't be holding anyone back." Hearing Li Fan's words, the first crewman muttered to himself, "Could it be that he actually has some skill?" The person next to him overheard and replied, "It's likely true. Commissioner Zhao's eyes are incredible." However, hearing Li Fan's claims made Zhang Haobo irritable. He pointed at the protagonist, trying to debunk him. What do you mean finding treasures every time you go to sea? I don't believe it. You are clearly using connections to try and steal my position as captain. Do you think I'm an idiot? Having heard Li Fan's bold words, Zhang Haobo challenged him to fulfill them. Raising his hand, he ordered, "Hoist the sails. We're heading to sea." The Kangyuan ship moved without the need for wind, leaving the port and heading toward the open ocean. It relied not on the power of wind or humans, but on a micro-formation spell. The ship was also equipped with a spiritual attractor. When traces of Layuli fish were discovered, the spirit would serve as a guide. However, the sea was vast and the spirit's range was limited. It required extreme experience from the crew members to find the general area where the fish appeared. But when faced with the aftermath of a windstorm or the migration of fish schools, all previous experience became useless. They could only rely on luck to find fish, and the Kangyuan's luck appeared to be poor. More than half a month passed. Aside from catching a few common fish and finding some conventional marine ores, there were no significant harvests. Not only did the crew show bored and annoyed expressions, but Zhang Haobo also began to feel anxious, as there was a punishment for coming in last place this time. Zhang Haobo remembered the island's orders were to return within a month. Having harvested very little, he knew it was possible they would have the smallest catch. We can only hope for a turn of events in the coming days. At that moment, Zhang Haobo spotted Li Fan. "Hey, are you finally coming out of the cabin?" Opening his arms wide, Zhang Haobo taunted him. "If you weren't eating every day, I'd think you had already jumped overboard." Li Fan ignored the provocation and stated, "I want a small boat. I have seen a treasure." Li Fan's words shocked the entire group. Jaw dropped, Zhang Haobo questioned him, stammering, You're not joking, are you?" Li Fan hurried him. "I saw jewels gleaming in the deep sea, waiting for me to save them." The words created by Li Fan established a short window of time. "The opportunity is slipping away. I am close to losing sight of the treasures." Zhang Haobo shouted at the crew, "Quick, prepare a dinghy!" As he lowered himself into the boat, Li Fan ordered, "You are not permitted to follow me." The curious group was surprised and questioned why. Li Fan was blunt in his response. "You are far too noisy. You will easily disrupt my line of sight." The group was left stunned, their jaws dropping at the answer. As Li Fan rode toward the horizon, someone asked Zhang Haobo if Li Fan was running away. However, since Li Fan had no food and was in the vast sea, Zhang Haobo did not believe that was a possibility. 2 hours later, after night had fallen, a signal was fired into the sky and seen by the crew. "Quick, steer the ship over there." When they reached Li Fan's location, the protagonist pointed into the water. "The treasure is right here." Zhang Haobo turned to the crew quickly, ordering, "Cast the nets." A few minutes later, several chests filled with gold had been salvaged and spread across the ship's bow. Confronted with the glitter of 16 chests of silver and gold, Zhang Haobo didn't know how to react. One of his subordinates was extremely excited. "Chief, Mr. Li wasn't lying." Faced with the truth that Li Fan truly could find treasures at sea, Zhang Haobo was impressed by his abilities. In Zhang Haobo's heart, Li Fan was already an extraordinary person, just like Commissioner Zhao. Zhang Haobo clenched his hand irritably. He hid the grinding of his teeth, for internally he blamed himself. It is rare to have the chance to meet a noble person. It's no problem if you didn't understand, but you truly thought, in a ridiculous way, that the other side was there to steal your tiny fleet. From the deck, Zhang Haobo looked down at the small boat and made a decision. He wanted to hurry over and apologize, right then and there, immediately. As soon as Li Fan boarded, Zhang Haobo approached to bow and apologize. After dismissively but kindly sending him away, Li Fan returned to his room to rest. Having obtained the treasure, the Kangyuan stopped fishing. It immediately turned around and returned to Liuli Island. After all, the harvest this time was so great that the entire crew wouldn't be able to rest easy until they returned safely. As they approached the island, Zhang Haobo called a man named Liu San. "Don't dock yet. Slip in quietly and notify Commissioner Zhao. Ask him to personally send someone for the inventory." Zhang Haobo then returned to his crew. "If nothing unexpected happens, our harvest might be the largest among all the fleets at sea this time. We'll earn 50%. Zhang Haobo would not accept outsiders doing the treasure's accounting. They will inevitably undervalue it or make intentional calculation errors. I won't be at ease unless our own people do it." Zhang Haobo's team cheered, celebrating. After waiting for some time, the Kangyuan docked at the shore. The people performing the inventory were blocked by Zhang Haobo and his crew. Facing the fishermen, a general official shouted, "Zhang Haobo, what is the meaning of this?" The man put his hand to his chin, mocking him with a cynical smile. "Judging by the silence of your ship, I fear you've returned empty-handed this time. It seems your time as captain has come to an end." One of Zhang Haobo's crew members grew furious and was about to move when Zhang Haobo reached out, stopping him. There's no use arguing with him. Observing Zhang Haobo's actions, the protagonist understood why he was able to sit firmly in in the position of captain of the Kongyuan. The only problem was his lack of backing and experience, which limited him. Sometime later, Commissioner Zhao personally arrived at the ship with his men. When 16 chests of jewelry were carried off the ship under the watchful eyes of the crowd, they caused a sensation of shock across the entire dock. Consequently, news that the Kongyuan had a massive treasure haul spread wildly, quickly covering all of Liuli Island. Sun Jiang burst through the door of the heavenly treasure tower in such a hurry to find the shopkeeper that he startled her. "What happened? What is this commotion?" Sun Jiang had run so fast he was panting heavily, barely able to speak. "Treasures! More than 10 chests. The Kongyuan." The shopkeeper continued cleaning a jar as if it were nothing. "It's only 10 boxes of treasures. Why cause a fuss over that? If they want to sell those things on the island, they still have to go through our heavenly treasure tower's channels." The shopkeeper finally understood what was happening when she noticed the ship's name. "Wait, you said it was the Kongyuan that brought the treasure? Isn't that the ship where the uncle named Li Fan is?" Sun Jiang confirmed her surprise. "Exactly. No one would have said he could actually persuade Commissioner Zhao. He was absolutely certain he would find treasures as soon as they reached the sea. His ability is just like that of the great shopkeeper of the heavenly treasure tower." The shopkeeper then ordered Sun Jiang to organize what was needed immediately and check when she could invite Li Fan for lunch. She had so many things on her mind that she continued to order. Hurry and send someone to clean the tower, and then send the deed to the property that was transferred to him. Once Sun Jiang left her alone, the shopkeeper began to think about Li Fan, wondering if he could be a treasure spirit channeling physique. The legendary spirit channeling physique, capable of detecting treasures, allows a person to sense them as long as rare treasures exist within a certain range. The little shopkeeper grew anxious. The great shopkeeper of the heavenly treasure tower, Yin Yueting, my older sister, possesses this special constitution. It was precisely by relying on this heaven-defying ability that she built the heavenly treasure tower. This large-scale chamber of commerce, which spanned the Kongyun Sea, had appeared out of nowhere and grown to such a size. The little shopkeeper never expected another treasure-channeling physique to appear. Li Fan was invited to Commissioner Zhao's mansion. Sitting for tea, the commissioner praised Li Fan. "You truly are extraordinary. Fishing 16 boxes of treasures on your first time at sea really surprised me." Li Fan agreed the haul had been substantial, but reminded him that he might not be able to obtain as many treasures in the future. Commissioner Zhao thought this was reasonable. No one could be that lucky every time. However, the harvest Li Fan obtained was enough for the commissioner to help him. "I will be able to operate a separate fleet for you." Li Fan thanked the commissioner profusely upon hearing this. Changing the subject, the commissioner probed, "I heard you are racking your brains just to find a spot in the body-purifying spiritual pool." Li Fan confirmed, "Even with inexhaustible treasures, after 100 years, they will turn into a pile of yellow earth. Only by seeking immortality and the Tao will we behold eternal life. A journey to this world is not in vain." The commissioner, seeing how Li Fan had a heart set on the Tao even at such an age, admitted he was inferior to him in willpower. Mr. Zhao told his story. "Over 10 years ago, when I was the same age as you, I saved an immortal master by a stroke of luck. The immortal master asked me to follow him in cultivation, but I knew I had already passed the best age to cultivate. Even if I had cultivated, I might have achieved nothing. However, the older one gets, the deeper the miasma becomes and the more painful it is to remove." Now that he had grown old, Commissioner Zhao vaguely regretted it, and it was a fact that there was no remedy for regret. To the commissioner, among the hundreds of thousands of mortals on Liuli Island, those with the same mindset as Li Fan were a minority. Li Fan felt the commissioner was praising him. He tried to investigate if the commissioner could help him with the quota for the purification pool, but that was beyond his means. The commissioner revealed that opening the purification pool required the immortal master's presidency, and the quota was decided by him. A year before the spiritual pool opened, the immortal master would announce the necessary materials. Each family collected the materials on the list and delivered them. The quota was decided based on the number of distribution points. The commissioner assured Li Fan he didn't need to worry. The Heavenly Treasure Tower has open branches on every island in the Kongyun Sea. If we are talking about material collection abilities, there is no one on Liuli Island who compares to them. Thinking of the tower and the young shopkeeper with a feather ornament in her hair, Li Fan understood a bit more about her. As soon as Li Fan returned to the small courtyard, Sun Jiang visited him. Obviously, he had been waiting for a long time. Li Fan discovered that the shopkeeper was looking for him. Li Fan already wanted to see her, so he easily agreed. Regarding the deed Sun Jiang was trying to hand him, Li Fan did not accept it. Li Fan was greeted by guards as he arrived imposingly at the Heavenly Treasure Tower. The young shopkeeper was already waiting for him and smiled like a sun in the middle of the night upon seeing him. This time, she wanted to introduce herself properly. "I am the shopkeeper of the Heavenly Treasure Tower of Liuli Island, Yin Yuzhen." The protagonist greeted her back with a short response, "Li Fan." Yin Yuzhen snorted, seeing that Li Fan was holding back, but as a mortal, he didn't think there was anything important to add to his introduction. As if trying to guess, Yin Yuzhen commented, "Is it not worth mentioning the eyes of a treasure spirit channeling physique?" The protagonist, upon hearing her, asked confusedly, "Oh, what treasure spirit channeling physique? I don't know." Seeing that Li Fan lacked such skills, Yin Yuzhen, leaning back, asked how he located treasures in the vast sea. Mysteriously, Li Fan replied, "I just feel it in my heart." The answer left the young woman irritated, to the point of pouting. She didn't believe Li Fan had the nerve to say he wasn't a treasure spirit channeling physique. Subsequently, seeing that Li Fan truly seemed not to know what that ability was, she revealed its characteristics to him. Upon hearing the whole story, the protagonist put his hand to his chin. "So you're saying your sister is also a treasure spirit channeling physique? How old is she? What does she look like? Where was she 20 years ago? And where is she now?" Faced with so many questions, Yin Yuzhen was confused. Yin Yuzhen suddenly took a step back, asking in alarm, "Could it be that you are our father whom we haven't seen for so long?" However, she quickly brushed the thought aside, as they did not look alike. Since Li Fan was merely curious, Yin Yuzhen shared their life story. "We were born on Yilan Island in the north. Our parents perished in a disaster when we were young, leaving my sister and me to depend only on each other." In Yin Yuzhen's memories, she and her sister could only rely on begging, never knowing when their next meal would come. However, from a moment Yin Yuzhen couldn't quite pinpoint, her sister began to consistently find various valuable items in different places. Thus, their lives improved. Later, Yin Yuzhen's sister established the Heavenly Treasure Tower, Tianbao Lu. Leaning against the rooftop fence, Yin Yuzhen revealed melancholically that she hadn't seen her sister for several years. The protagonist asked where her sister had gone. The young woman revealed that 3 years ago, her sister had been chosen by a passing immortal master and taken away. At first, she would send people to deliver letters saying she was safe, which relieved Yin Yuzhen. However, later on, the news stopped arriving. Curious, Li Fan asked if Yin Yuzhen's sister might have been taken away to cultivate immortality. Yin Yuzhen replied unhappily, "If only that were true. In the letters my sister sent previously, she used a secret code that only the two of us understood to tell me that her current situation was very dangerous, and if she stopped contacting me, it would mean she might have met with misfortune. She also told me not to go looking for her." Li Fan raised the possibility that Yin Yuzhen's sister had been taken because of her unique physique. However, since her sister was just a mortal, she could only sense things that were valuable to mortals. These treasures, in the eyes of immortal masters, were no different from rusty metal. Yin Yuzhen revealed that several immortal masters had sensed her sister's unique physique before, but none were interested in it. Even now, years later, Yin Yuzhen did not know why her sister had been taken. Gazing at the distant sky, Yin Yuzhen continued, "Although my sister likely brings bad news rather than good, the legacy she left behind is still here. The heavenly treasure entrusted to me is so valuable that it absolutely cannot be destroyed in my hands. I don't have my sister's miraculous skills, and since she disappeared, our family business gets worse day by day. Combined with my own mistakes, I'm starting to accumulate great financial losses." Yin Yuzhen revealed that the veterans of the Heavenly Treasure Tower gradually began to grow dissatisfied with her. They even wanted to collaborate with outsiders to remove her from her position and take over the Heavenly Treasure Tower. Fortunately, they were still apprehensive about Yin Yuzhen's sister and had not made a move yet. Thus, under the pretext of opening new markets, Yin Yuzhen had gone from Yilan Island to Liuli Island to maintain a low profile for the time being. The young woman revealed that she originally wanted to develop there for a few years, accumulate strength, and then settle accounts upon her return, but she didn't expect to find someone else with a treasure spirit channeling physique. Yin Yuzhen moved toward Li Fan, asking for his help. "If you are with me, I will definitely be able to gain control of the Heavenly Treasure Tower." Lowering his head, Li Fan stated he was not interested in the tower's affairs. "My only desire is immortal cultivation." Li Fan reminded Yin Yuzhen of what she had promised, to help him get a spot in the body purification pool if he helped her secure a fleet. "Are you trying to go back on your word now?" With a smile, Yin Yuzhen showed the opposite. "Here, we put integrity ahead of business. If we promise, we will do it." Yin Yuzhen, however, added a but to the matter, and he looked at her inquiringly. Turning away to avoid Li Fan's gaze, Yin Yuzhen asked, "Uncle, even if you enter the purification pool, then what? Expelling miasma is no easy task. Every year, nearly half of the people who enter the pool do not succeed. Besides, you are old. The possibility of failing is high." Reminding Li Fan that he was no longer young, Yin Yuzhen questioned if he was sure he would succeed. "Everyone has only one chance to enter the pool. If you fail, I fear it will be goodbye to immortal cultivation. Forever." But for Li Fan, even if the chances were slim, they would be enough for him to try. Hearing Yin Yuzhen's tone, Li Fan figured she had something else up her sleeve. The shopkeeper confirmed his thought and revealed a pill. Along with my sister's last letter came an elixir called the Miasma Eliminating Pill. According to her, the pill increases the probability of success in expelling the miasma. Having such a wonderful elixir, Li Fan questioned why Yin Yuzhen hadn't used it. Somewhat annoyed, Yin Yuzhen gave Li Fan a lesson. "Not everyone is like you, obsessed with immortality. My desire is to do business and protect the heavenly treasure tower that my sister left behind." The protagonist nodded, accepting her answer, as everyone had their own aspirations. Excitedly, Yin Yuzhen asked, "Uncle, does that mean you accept?" The protagonist did not answer but asked for time to think. "I will give you an answer in 3 days." Being left behind after the farewell, Yin Yuzhen hoped she wasn't wrong this time. After conducting some investigations, Li Fan confirmed that Yin Yuzhen had not lied about the miasma-free pill. 3 days later, he met Yin Yuzhen again and agreed to her request. They agreed that before the spiritual pool opened, Li Fan would help her tower collect a certain amount of treasures from time to time. When the spiritual pool opened, Yin Yuzhen would give the miasma-free pill to Li Fan. To demonstrate sincerity, Yin Yuzhen even handed over the deed to a property at Tingyu Tower. Since both sides had reached an agreement, Li Fan accepted unceremoniously. Thus, he moved again. Tingyu Tower was located in the center of Liuli Island. Although situated in a busy market, it felt as though one were in the mountains. During the year, Li Fan lived in Tingyu Tower. He completed 3 of Liuli Island's official voyages, bringing back several treasure chests each time, shocking the entire island while successfully securing the maritime fleet for the Heavenly Treasure Tower. Every time the Heavenly Treasure Tower went to sea, Li Fan went with them. In 1 year, Tianbao Lu earned a basin full of money, almost equal to the sum of the gains from the last 5 years. Li Fan also stabilized his prestige in the hearts of everyone at the Heavenly Treasure Tower. Everyone viewed him with respect or fear. However, Li Fan did not ignore his cultivation. Throughout the past year, whenever he had free time, he cultivated meticulously. Finally, something happened that left Li Fan extremely excited. The progress of the Return of Truth charge had accelerated. Previously, the Return of Truth charge relied solely on the natural passage of time, reaching the 100% level and then slightly growing again up to a limit of 200%. Li Fan had been in the cultivation world for at least 1 year. According to past attempts, he should have been between 6 and 600%, but the charge had already reached 15%. The speed was twice as fast. Aside from the purifying art, Li Fan had no contact with anything that could help. The only explanation was that the cultivation of the deep yellow heart, purification incantation, had accelerated the progress of the Return of Truth. In addition to the progress charge, the upper limits of his physical and psychological age significantly increased this time. Time passed in silence as Li Fan cultivated. Soon, only 1 year remained until the opening of the body purification pool. Excitedly, Yin Yuzhen met with Li Fan. "Uncle, Liuli Island has announced the list of materials required by the Immortal Master this time." In the meeting, Sunjong read through the materials list. This time, all of them were extremely common, except for the Starry Sea quicksand, something he had never heard of. The key to the competition could lie in this single item. Similarly, Yin Yuzhen had never heard of it, and felt she would have to ask someone from the Chamber of Commerce. Knowing how such people were like hungry ghosts, Sunjong already imagined they would have to sweat blood just to obtain the information. Li Fan, reading the list, wanted to obtain the quicksand no matter what. He was determined to do anything to get the pass to the spiritual pool. The Wanhua Chamber of Commerce was not a local chamber from the Kongyun Sea. It hailed from an unknown continent tens of thousands of miles away. It was said they were backed by an immortal master who could cross endless distances to do business on Liuli Island, since they still had a year to prepare and the traveling merchant from Wanhua would pass. By the island in 3 months, Yin Yuzhen believed she could contact him. Li Fan, however, did not want to pin all his hopes on the Wanhua Chamber. Liuli Island has received countless refugees from all over the Kongyun Sea. There must be someone who recognizes the Starry Sea quicksand. Other factions on the island will also be looking for it, so we need to monitor them as well. With the publication of the materials for the body-purifying spiritual pool, the matter spread throughout Liuli Island. Even commoners who didn't care about such things knew that the island's major factions were now searching for something called Starry Sea Quicksand. One day, Xiao Heng suddenly appeared at the Tingyu Tower. Meeting with him, Li Fan asked, "I wonder what kind of business my little brother has with me." Xiao Heng mentioned he had heard Li Fan was looking for the Starry Sea Quicksand. The protagonist nodded. "I am already at an advanced age. If I want to cultivate, I can only rely on the spiritual pool." With an excited expression, Xiao Heng revealed that the immortal master of Dali had once promised that as long as they gathered supplies, he would take them to the cultivation world, and among the supplies he requested was that very quicksand. Surprised, Li Fan frowned. "Why do I have no recollection of this?" Xiao Heng revealed that when the list was announced to the world, the content had already been reduced to a few items, and most of the spots had already been distributed by the noble families of Dali. What he and the prince of the mansion he came from managed to collect was precisely the quicksand. Upon hearing this, Li Fan asked what conditions he required to help him. Xiao Heng recalled the past. "Back then, you paid to bury Chang Yu. That counts as a favor to me. I shouldn't be doing this, but life on Liuli Island is truly hard. I don't have great skills like Brother Li, and I'm currently still living on the outskirts." Before Xiao Heng could finish, Li Fan interrupted. "You don't need to say more. I understand your hardships." Determined to get the item, Li Fan declared, "As long as you give me a lead, ask for anything, and I will do my best to satisfy you." A smile returned to Xiao Heng's melancholic gaze as he thanked him in advance. Xiao Heng then explained the origin of the rare item. It actually had different names. The Starry Sea Quicksand was essentially meteoritic iron that fell from the sky. Surprised, Li Fan asked if any meteoritic iron would do, and if there were other requirements. Subsequently, Xiao Heng slowly explained the requirements one by one. The appearance of the meteorite had to be good, and each piece had to weigh at least 25 kilograms. Li Fan committed the qualifications to memory. As soon as Xiao Heng finished speaking, Li Fan asked what he wanted in return. Timidly scratching his chin, Xiao Heng asked for a place to live and an easy job. "Well, it would be even better if there were some servants to help me." Li Fan laughed at the simple request. "Does the son of the worthy Prince of Zhenan only need that? You can add a little more. I still have some influence within the Heavenly Treasure Tower." Xiao Heng shook his head, knowing his own limits. He just wanted to be able to eat and live well. He didn't want wealth that might make others envious and lead to disaster. Li Fan did not press the matter and watched Xiao Heng leave after a grand farewell. Before Xiao Heng left, the protagonist asked if he had no plans to cultivate, but the young man's answer was short. "We'll see. I really have no interest in immortal cultivation. Reading that book to purify the miasma makes me quite bored." After Xiao Heng departed, Li Fan went directly to the Heavenly Treasure Tower. Upon hearing Li Fan, Yin Yuzhen was wary, but the protagonist confidently stated that Xiao Heng would not lie, though they still needed to verify it. He reminded her that she said the Wanhua merchant would arrive soon. He believed they could confirm the truth with him. Yin Yuzhen agreed, as they could save a significant amount of money. Confident yet cautious, Li Fan told the shopkeeper, "No matter what, we must secretly buy the meteoritic iron that fits the requirements. Currently, few people know the information, but that might not be the case in a while." Li Fan also advised Yin Yuzhen to mix the meteoritic iron with other purchases so as not to attract curiosity. At the same time, they could order people to spread false rumors about the Starry Sea Quicksand. Hearing all the points raised by Li Fan, Yin Yuzhen was impressed. "Uncle, you are not simple. Before I thought you had a treasure spirit channeling physique. I didn't expect you to be such a good strategist." Curiously, she asked what Li Fan did before arriving on the island. Recalling his 500 years of history, Li Fan replied while looking at the horizon, "I just taught people how to read." Yin Yuzhen pouted upon hearing him, not believing a word of it. Li Fan prepared to leave, leaving the matter to Yin Yuzhen as he needed to cultivate. "Unless it's important, do not disturb me." He also asked her to take care of the promise he made to Xiao Heng. After Li Fan left, Yin Yuzhen wondered, how can even a small thing like helping Xiao Heng be a great sign of luck? Could my ability to seek good fortune and avoid evil have gone wrong? Although Yin Yuzhen didn't have her sister's treasure-seeking ability, since she was young, she had been able to see good fortune as well as ominous events. Since she met Li Fan, however, the premonitions for every task he suggested showed signs of great luck. She had never encountered a great luck event before meeting Li Fan. Although she didn't know what kind of achievements he would have in the future, Yin Yuzhen decided to place all her trust in her intuition and do everything she could to help him. Under Yin Yuzhen's authorization, the Tianbao Lu began operating at full capacity, spreading lies. Knowing it could be a trap, other factions chose to wait and watch. However, one faction chose the mentality of buy first, even if it's a lie, since they could sell it again. They bought items related to the rumors on a large scale. Consequently, other factions couldn't keep waiting and joined the buying spree. They flocked to the shops to buy the rumored items, causing prices on Luli Island to skyrocket and chaos to ensue. As the instigator of all this, Li Fan simply stayed quiet in his Tingyu Tower to cultivate. 3 months later, Yin Yuzhen contacted the traveling merchant, and she and Li Fan set off from the island. One morning, they took a small boat, leaving Liuli Island and traveling north toward the sea areas they had agreed to visit. Suddenly, a flying ark abruptly appeared in the sky, and a voice recognized who was in the small boat. "Ha ha! Shopkeeper Yin! Long time no see!" The flying ark descended upon them, slowly coming to rest on the water's surface. Yin Yuzhen smiled behind her veil, imagining that Li Fan would be shocked to see a flying ark for the first time. However, Li Fan's expression remained calm, betraying no emotion. Laughing, a man with long hair descended from the ark, greeting Yin Yuzhen. "It's been a long time, shopkeeper." Greeting traveling merchant Wu, Yin Yuzhen noted they hadn't seen each other in 3 years. Noticing the person beside her, Merchant Wu asked about his identity, and she explained that Li Fan was an elder contracted by the Heavenly Treasure Tower. The merchant greeted Li Fan with clasped hands and turned back to Yin Yuzhen. "Shopkeeper, let's check the items first. I fear that this time it may be difficult for us to meet again." Surprised, Yin Yuzhen hurriedly asked if something had happened. Shrugging, the merchant revealed he didn't know the specific reason, but had received a notification from headquarters. All traveling merchants in the Kongyun Sea are to cease operations and return as soon as possible. Sighing, Merchant Wu revealed that if he hadn't already arranged the meeting with Yin Yuzhen, he might have already headed back. That was why he wanted to hurry. Yin Yuzhen recognized that her tower's prosperity on Luli Island was due to the support of the Wanhua Chamber of Commerce. Now that they were suddenly withdrawing from the Kongyun Sea, she wondered what would happen to them in the future. However, she felt no reaction from her ability to see fortune and avoid evil. Seeing the shopkeeper lost in thought, Merchant Wu woke her from her reverie. She apologized quickly and led the way into their small vessel. Inside the boat's cabin, Li Fan guided Merchant Wu through various items, from jade discs to luminous pearls and pieces of coral. Finally, Li Fan showed him 3 pieces of the Starry Sea quicksand. Hearing about the materials, Merchant Wu quickly picked up a large stone, lifting it to analyze it. That piece of meteoritic iron must have weighed at least 25 kilograms, yet it seemed like a toy in his hands. After sorting the items, particularly the meteoritic irons, Merchant Wu smiled. "Shopkeeper Yin, you have good luck this time. To think you managed to collect so many rare items like the Starry Sea quicksand." Li Fan and Yin Yuzhen exchanged a glance, knowing they had confirmed Xiao Heng was correct. Merchant Wu was very satisfied with the items provided by the Heavenly Treasure Tower. Since both parties would not be able to meet for a long time, he specially invited Yin Yuzhen and Li Fan onto the flying ark. After they ate and drank, the merchant showed them the ark's storage vault. Everywhere they looked, there were all kinds of items, from the most valuable treasures of the Kongyun Sea to those whose prices were still unclear. The merchant revealed he had bought everything that seemed peculiar, and allowed Yin Yuzhen and Li Fan to choose a few items that interested them. Yin Yuzhen's eyes sparkled. With her ability to see good fortune, she felt like a mouse in a cheese shop. Treasures meant for mortals no longer interested Li Fan, but seeing Yin Yuzhen's eagle eyes made him want to accompany her. The merchant offered the duo only the time of 1 incense stick, about 15 minutes, to check the items. Yin Yuzhen quickly moved to look at some tremendously beautiful jade bracelets. After more than centuries of cycles, however, Li Fan had lost interest in such items. He picked up a small pearl disinterestedly, purely out of curiosity, but his brow furrowed when he saw the information about it. A notification appeared. Detected chargeable item, valuable item of the heavens and earth, nascent rank Kanghai pearl. Charge? Li Fan was left speechless by the information. There was a short description on the pearl. Where the sea decays, a vast ocean is born. Li Fan tried not to act too excitedly and placed the pearl back in its original spot. He pretended not to care, looking at other items as well. Until the merchant announced that time was up, Li Fan didn't even look at the Kanghai pearl again. When they were about to leave, Yin Yuzhen questioned Li Fan, "Aren't you going to choose anything? It's rare for traveling merchant Wu to be so generous." The merchant laughed and placed a hand on Li Fan's shoulder. "There is no logic in entering a mountain of treasures and coming back empty-handed. Are you looking down on me? Choose something." Not wanting to be rude, Li Fan pointed to 2 items near him, the Kanghai pearl and a piece of green iron. Merchant Wu praised the choice. "You have good eyes, elder. I found that jade statue on a desolate island in the north of the Kongyun Sea. It was worshipped by a primitive tribe for thousands of years. If a normal person keeps it at home, it will have a mind-calming and body-strengthening effect." Li Fan then took the pearl, asking if there was any information on it. The merchant's reply was short and unenthusiastic. "I bought that from a merman on Luyun Island." The protagonist looked at the pearl and committed the name of the origin island to memory. At that moment, both sides concluded the transaction. The Wanhua chamber obtained a large amount of treasure, while Yin Yuzhen obtained a vast amount of gold and silver, as well as some treasures. On the way back, although Yin Yuzhen had a great harvest, she could hardly hide her worry. Li Fan already imagined the problem and asked, "Are you worried about the future business of the Heavenly Treasure Tower?" The young woman nodded with a desolate look. The Wanhua chamber was a massive and crucial business channel. She didn't know why they had withdrawn so suddenly. Returning to Liuli Island under the sunset, Li Fan recited a saying, "When the cart reaches the mountain, there will be a path. No need to worry too much." Arriving on the island, night had already fallen. Li Fan immediately returned to Tingyu Tower. On the trip, he had only wanted to verify if the quicksand was meteoritic iron, but he hadn't expected to obtain a treasure. While looking at the Kanghai pearl, he wondered what was special about it. He didn't understand why it was named Kanghai, vast sea, and if there truly could be an ocean inside it. Suddenly, Li Fan heard a knock at his door. "It's not even dark yet. Who is coming to disturb me at this hour?" Li Fan grabbed a dagger and approached the door. "Who's there?" Xiaoheng's voice came from outside. "Brother Li, it's me." The protagonist opened the door, letting Xiaoheng in. Xiaoheng entered Li Fan's tower in a hurry, panting as he spoke. "Brother Li, information has leaked that we infiltrated here from the Broken Realm." Li Fan questioned the young man about who had leaked the news. Xiaoheng didn't know, but now everyone on the island knew they were not natives of the cultivation world, but had arrived on the island with the help of the Tianbao Lu. Worried, Xiaoheng revealed rumors that the immortal master was furious and planned to arrest everyone. Li Fan, scratching his small goatee, thought for a moment and advised the youth, "Don't worry, this is not a major issue." To Li Fan, if the immortal master wanted to eliminate them, it would have happened long ago. "Do you think he let us hear the news and discuss countermeasures? It seems this matter is not entirely directed at us. The target of the person who spread the news is actually the Heavenly Treasure Tower." Without explaining much to Xiaoheng, Li Fan hurried to Yin Yuzhen's tower. The young woman crossed her arms irritably. "I also received the news. The various forces on the island already know that the fake news about the Starry Sea quicksand was our doing. These people won't stand for it, so they are spreading the news that our tower secretly runs a mortal travel business." Li Fan imagined that the other forces wanted to force them to hand over some of the quicksand stones. He didn't think it would be a problem, since they had collected plenty. "We can throw them a small portion and let them fight like dogs, attacking each other." The Heavenly Treasure Tower agreed to deliver a portion of the Starry Sea quicksand, but the other groups would need to provide materials of equal value in return. At the same time, how the ore would be divided would be decided among those families. Additionally, they had to guarantee a spot for the Heavenly Treasure Tower in the body-purifying spiritual pool. This condition wasn't too harsh, so after some discussion, both sides reached an agreement. With that, after taking the price of several dozen pieces of meteoritic iron, the Heavenly Treasure Tower successfully escaped the vortex of chaos. After a few days, the rumors about the tower's business with mortals disappeared without a trace. Time flew by, and finally, the day of the spiritual pool's opening arrived. Yin Yuzhen handed a pill to Li Fan. "Take this miasma-eliminating pill." Li Fan had waited a long time for this day. He could finally disperse the miasma from his body and officially step onto the path of immortal cultivation. After taking the pill given by Yin Yuzhen, Li Fan entered the spell formation in the center of Liuli Island under the guidance of a special guide. There were 13 people in the formation in total. Except for Li Fan, all were young. In an instant, the group's surroundings changed completely. In the blink of an eye, they went from a busy market to towering mountains. Lush green trees were everywhere. Distant peaks were shrouded in mist, with mountain ranges rising and falling. Looking up, the mountaintop was hidden in thick clouds and fog. There was nothing to be seen. The group climbed stone stairs for 4 hours without stopping. The youths possessed impressive physiques. After climbing for so long, they didn't even slow their pace. As for Li Fan, since he was no longer young, he panted heavily and managed only with difficulty not to fall behind. After another hour, they finally reached the top. The summit was just a small clearing. The crowd was spread around, making the place a bit cramped. This peak was the highest point among the mountains. Looking around, there was nothing but a vast white sea of clouds. The winds howled, the sea of clouds surged, and occasionally mountain peaks revealed themselves like islands. At that moment, a man appeared behind them. So, what do you think of the scenery? The guardian of Layuli Island, Immortal Master He, appeared before them with a smile, revealing his face. The group was impressed to see him and quickly began praising the location he had chosen. Walking to the edge of the cliff, Immortal Master, he recalled the past. When I first came to Layuli Island, the height of this peak was down there, among the mountains, far below the sea of clouds. He asked the group mysteriously, "Did you know that mountains and rivers can grow larger gradually just like people?" Impressed, a young man asked, "Does that mean the great mountains and rivers are also living beings?" Immortal Master, he continued his lesson. Some peaks look imposing, but their fate has already come to an end, and they cannot take another step forward in all their existence. Some are just small mounds of earth now, but have infinite potential. Who knows if, in a few years, they will turn into pillars that support the heavens. Pointing away from the mountain toward the great sea of clouds, Immortal Master, he declared, just like this Shaowei mountain, which back then didn't even draw attention, but in a few decades, managed to grow to the point of looking down upon all the other smaller mountains. Despite the grand words, the Immortal Master did not let them get excited for no reason. Of course, most are like these peaks amidst the sea of clouds, destined from the start to serve only as a counterpoint, silently looking up at the peaks above the clouds. Making a comparison, the Immortal Master asked how people were similar to mountains. Turning to the group, he continued, "Today you will step into the spiritual pool and wash away the miasma from your bodies. Whether you can walk the path of immortality or even have hope for the great Tao of longevity and what achievements you will have in the future, it all depends on your own luck." The Immortal Master finished his speech, motivating the group to try their best. Having finalized his words, he told them to go ahead. Confused, a young man asked Immortal Master, where the body-purifying spiritual pool was. Unexpectedly, the Immortal Master pointed to the sea of clouds. "It's right there." One of the confused people tried to question him. "Immortal Master, are you joking?" Sighing, the Immortal Master flicked 2 fingers upward, and what moved was the head of the one who dared to question him. As soon as the body hit the ground, despair arose within the group. Everyone knelt, begging, "Spare us, Immortal Master! We won't dare to question you! Spare our lives!" With a commanding voice, Immortal, he pressured them. "Let me teach you another lesson. On the path of cultivation, possessing good judgment is extremely important. Ponder clearly what can be said and what cannot. Do not wait until your body has perished and your Tao has vanished to blame me for not reminding you of this today." At that moment, the Immortal Master noticed that a single person had not bowed down begging for mercy. Li Fan clasped his hands, thanking Master He for his teaching. The protagonist simply walked to the edge of the precipice and took a step forward, as if there truly were something he could step on. When he stepped into the abyss, a small magic circle appeared beneath Li Fan's feet, serving as a support. Under everyone's gaze, the wind rose around him, dancing in his wake. Immortal Master, he recognized Li Fan's excellent disposition. He was only disappointed that Li Fan was already so old. Under the gaze of the other immortals, Li Fan was carried by the wind toward the clouds. Turning to the others, Immortal Master, he warned, "He has already entered the spiritual pool. Those who enter first can enjoy more of the spiritual liquid. All of you, follow him quickly." The clouds surrounded Li Fan and surged into the sea in the middle of the sky. The white clouds gathered constantly toward him and in an instant aggregated to form a white spiritual liquid. Being inside the spiritual liquid, Li Fan not only did not feel suffocated but also felt incredibly warm and comfortable, like a fetus inside a mother's body. His mind relaxed completely, but immediately after, the heat ceased to be just warm. The scorching heat turned into a boil and finally transformed into a blazing fire. Magma-like heat flowed wildly and devastated the interior of Li Fan's body, tearing and piercing every inch of his nerves. This kind of pain is truly unbearable for a human. Unconsciously, he wanted to cry out for the return of truth. However, he shouted something else in a fury. "Were 300 years of bitter searching not just for this moment? No matter what happens, I definitely will not give up. I want to cultivate immortality. I want eternal life." The pain was like knives, cutting his soul into 1,000 pieces and then another 1,000 pieces, endless and without slowing its pace. Li Fan's consciousness began to dissipate. Even at this moment, the obsession in his heart made him endure, and he did not activate the return of truth. Instinct replaced being. The deep yellow heart purification incantation operated at this moment. Li Fan's consciousness seemed to find a backbone, recondensing and strengthening itself. Although in a state of unconsciousness, he was like a reef by the sea, firm despite the wind and waves crashing against him. 3 days later, Immortal, he returned to the mount where from afar he watched the spiritual pool. Of the 12 people who had entered, 11 had already left. 4 of them had succeeded, while 7 had failed. Now only 1 person remained in the spiritual pool. The older a mortal is, the more inseparable the immortal mortal miasma and the flesh become. The body-purifying spiritual pool expels the miasma by completely destroying the physical body and then remodels the body with the power of regeneration. The pain felt during this is unimaginable. Immortal, he actually gulped, knowing how shocking the willpower of someone who remained at such an age for 3 days in the spiritual pool was. He was certain that if Li Fan succeeded in his purification, cultivating to the foundation establishment stage would not be difficult. There might even be a chance to reach the golden core. Another 3 days passed, and immortal, he could no longer maintain his neutral expression. He was completely shocked, to the point that his jaw dropped. If he couldn't still sense Li Fan's life aura, he would have entered the spiritual pool himself to see what was happening. Another 3 days passed, and immortal, he was already tired of waiting. He remembered how the body-purifying spiritual pool had been created by the celestial venerable Dongji of the Myriad Immortal Alliance. Logically speaking, it shouldn't be malfunctioning. To immortal no one should be able to stay in the spiritual pool for so long. 9 days had passed, and the spiritual materials that kept the pool running were about to be exhausted. Some thoughts passed through the immortal's mind pensively. If the formation stopped, it would be bad luck for the young man, but it would have nothing to do with him. However, thinking of Li Fan's will and readiness to stay for 9 days in a painful state of destruction and reconstruction of his body, the immortal decided to act. He considered what he was going to do as a bet that Li Fan would achieve extraordinary feats. Reaching out, immortal, he brought items from his spatial inventory that he had secretly kept for himself and strengthened the formation of the spiritual pool so that it would remain functioning. Between the clouds, the air moved with speed. In the midst of the wind, Li Fan resurfaced once more. There was a slight smile on his face. As soon as Li Fan returned to the mountain peak, immortal, he received him with a laugh. "Congratulations, little friend. From now on, the shackles have been released and there is hope for eternal life." Confused, Li Fan wondered why the immortal was so excited. With a look of regret, immortal, he revealed a bit of what happened. "You don't know, but you stayed for 11 days. The formation materials were almost gone, so I had to spend a fortune to add more just for you, little friend." Li Fan was shocked to hear how much time he had spent inside. Also shocked, the immortal told a bit of his experience while waiting. Li Fan ignored him and opened his information. His physical age limit had broken the 100-year mark, reaching 120 years. Even his psychological age limit had doubled, reaching more than 2,000 years. Li Fan looked at the information while bolts of surprise struck him. He wondered how the Deep Yellow Heart Purification Incantation had become the Deep Yellow Heart Refining Incantation. Since it wasn't yet time to seek deeper information, Li Fan decided to investigate later. He greeted the immortal master. "Li Fan will not forget your grace. I will definitely repay you from the bottom of my heart." Greeting Li Fan back, the immortal reassured him, "The path of immortality is difficult. I only helped where I could. After removing the miasma, it is a matter of sensing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and guiding the chi into the body." Immortal master. He showed Li Fan a book called 5 Spirits Chi Detection Method and explained that it was a summary of the experience of previous generations regarding the perception of spiritual energy, something he could study. Immortal master. He also handed him a talisman, which should be carried before guiding the chi into his own body. Since Li Fan would continue living in the mundane world and would come into contact with mortals who possessed miasma daily, the dust-cleaning talisman could help him isolate the intrusion of miasma for 5 years. Immortal, he extended an invitation to Li Fan. When he reached the chi condensation stage, he could visit him so they could go to the Myriad Immortal Alliance in the Kongyun Sea on Wanqian Island. He Zhenghao explained the details of the precautions to be taken during the process of conducting qi into the body. After all relevant matters had been clarified, Li Fan said his goodbyes and departed. Seeing the mountain's potential exhausted, the Immortal Master realized he would need to move to another mountain. Flying over the island, Immortal Master. He remembered his cultivation method, the art of sitting on mountains. The main characteristic of this art was, as the name said, sitting on mountains and taking advantage of success. Choosing a mountain, sitting on its peak, and activating the cultivation method, thus spending several years to fuse his aura with the mountain peak. After that, every time the mountain grew an inch, He Zhenghao's cultivation base would receive a response and increase in accordance with the mountain. In addition to the benefit of the mountain's growth, he could also obtain gains by helping others, as he had by helping Li Fan this time. If Li Fan managed to reach the qi condensation stage in the future, he would receive a response from the unseen world, increasing his own cultivation base. He wouldn't be sucking or stealing the other person's cultivation. This was more related to the saying, when a man reaches the Tao, his chickens and dogs also ascend to heaven. The number of items He Zhenghao had spent would determine the size of his harvest. Thus, when he found promising juniors, he did not restrict himself in helping them. Li Fan returned to his tower. After leaving the spiritual pool formation, he alerted no one and returned silently to cultivate. He immediately tried to execute the Deep Yellow Heart Refining Incantation, a technique that had emerged inexplicably. As soon as he activated it, he could clearly detect the difference between it and the old one. Cultivating the Purification Incantation took about an hour to calm the mind. However, as soon as the refining incantation was used, he felt his heart become clear as a mirror in just an instant. By cultivating the refining incantation, he could clearly feel his spirit strengthening at every moment. Li Fan was still pensive about something, but why did this deep yellow heart purification incantation become the deep yellow heart refining incantation? Immortalized techniques cannot be cultivated by more than one person. Does this heart refining incantation not count as an immortal cultivation method? Only one step away from crossing the threshold of a cultivator and, fortunately, acquiring a magnificent technique like the deep yellow heart refining incantation, Li Fan couldn't help but feel a bit buoyant. However, a few days later, he received a letter. Xiao Heng had successfully managed to guide qi into his body and had already gone to Wangxian Island. Li Fan was shocked to hear the news about the young man who previously only wanted a decent home and an easy job.